580 Sports Talk coming to you on a Victory Thursday. That is right. You don't sweep the Kansas City Royals. That is right. Oakland, no. You might win the series, but you ain't sweeping the boys in blue. They found a way to get it done yesterday. We won't talk a ton of Royals, a little bit. We'll get to plenty of Chiefs news. We're going to talk some college football. One of my favorite segments of the entire week is when we get to talk ball with Paul Myerberg of USA Today. We will get to plenty of KU K-State news. We will also talk with Rick Peterson, high school football. High school football starts tomorrow in Missouri.
Yeah.
You've got
started last week in some other states.
You got JUCO football starting today. Butler taking on Garden City in a big one. Also, hear from Tim Fitzgerald, Mitch Holthus. We'll talk over-unders. We got so much to get to. And because it is a Victory Thursday, we're going to give away some Royals tickets today.
Yeah!
Brandon, don't look at me with this whole, Victory Thursday. When you only win 41 games thus far and you're nearing the end of August, you need to celebrate that.
Yeah, if you wanted to celebrate it so bad, you could have come on the show with me yesterday for 13 minutes of scalding hot sports takes. I timed it out. That's how long I was on the air for. Roughly 13, 14
We
minutes.
don't need to celebrate it that bad. But we will give away some Royals tickets because the Royals off today. Got
to recover from losing a series to the Oakland A's.
Not only did they lose the series to the A's, they lost the season series 2-4.
Sure did.
They lost the series to the A's. 4 of their 38 wins are against the Royals.
Sick.
That's not great.
Neat.
Not great. So, but maybe there is some hope. NASCAR driver and Royal pitcher Cole Reagans. Boy, was he good yesterday. Really good.
This is the first time I considered just how NASCAR a name Cole Reagans
Cole
is.
Reagans is
It is extremely NASCAR.
Extremely NASCAR.
It is a name that makes you think that after he comes off the mound, the first thing he would say to a reporter is, "I'd like to thank Tide."
Had a good car today. We
had a good car today. I want to thank Ford Quality Care, Ford Credit, Haviline.
I feel like he went to App State. He's from North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte.
Crew was tremendous.
So we'll get into that coming up in a little bit. But
raise hell, praise Dale.
As always, let us know your thoughts on our text line and let us know. 785-272-9429. Check us out on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, hit the subscribe button. You can check us out. Leave a comment in the comment section as well. We'll try to get to all of those here on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Let's get to the biggest news of the day. We are 2 weeks away from an NFL game involving the Kansas City Chiefs, and Chris Jones is still an absolute no-show. And boy, yesterday, Chris Jones decided to use his Twitter fingers, if you will. It went back and forth with a couple of fans to the tune of, I got the money. I can handle it. But then Andy Reid met with the media yesterday. And Big Red really doesn't say a whole lot when it comes to all of this until Andy Reid gets upset enough to the point where, hey, I've had enough of this. I'm going to speak my mind. So Andy Reid throws out there that there's been no communication, so he doesn't know what's going to go down. Whatever happens, happens. If he's not there, the game goes on. They've got to communicate and do their thing. There's been just no communication. This is the date that Andy Reid is now frustrated. We found the date. Andy Reid could handle it all the way up until August 23rd with no Chris Jones. Now Chris Jones is on Andy Reid's bad side right now because at some point in time, Andy Reid puts everything aside and says football is football. Andy Reid lets the players have their personality. We know that from Mahomes to Kelsey and all of that. That's very wide known that Andy Reid gives you a lot of leash. In quarterback, what did Mahomes say? If Andy Reid gets on you during a game, that means you gotta cool it. All right, you're getting a little too wild and out there.
Mm-hmm.
During press conferences, Andy Reid gives you just the most generic, simple stuff that you can. But when he does say something and he calls somebody out and he gives specific details, that is how you know that's what Andy Reid is thinking, right? By the way, I found out it's Rashee Rice. That's kind of interesting. Rashee Rice, when he was out of shape, right? He mentioned something. He said something. Well, now there's been no communication. Before it was, hey, things will work out. I'm not going to talk about it because he's not here. If you're not here, we're not discussing it. So now you've got Andy Reid saying there's been no communication twice. Whatever happens, happens. This is Andy Reid's way of saying, Chris, I get it. I understand the money aspect of it. I realize that you are trying to do this, but it's time to get your ass here and play some football. You had your chance to do what you were going to do. You didn't get your deal done. Let's play the dang game, because Andy Reid is about football. If there's anything, you guys are college football sickos and you're watching all these ridiculous games at night. That's Andy Reid for the NFL. Like, he just wants to play football. He just wants to coach football.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he is now frustrated with this. It's almost to the point now where the way it's all gone, and I don't fault Chris Jones at all for what he's going to do. He will play 6 games for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to tell you that right now. It might be only 6, because if you don't play 6 games for the Kansas City Chiefs, you don't accrue a year.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, then he's just going to do all this. So he will be playing for the Chiefs. Might be just for the final 6 games of the year after the bye week. I am now on the camp that I don't think he's going to show up week 1. I don't think he's going to play week 1.
Aaron Donald sat out the whole preseason before he got his record-setting deal a couple of years ago. And it sure seems like Chris Jones is committed to following the Aaron Donald path or the Aaron Donald playbook, because he thinks he's worth Aaron Donald money. So I think that becomes even more instructive as we get this far along in the process, with Jones not reporting to camp and making some, like, I don't even want to call it a threat that he won't show up until week 8, because he messes with people on Twitter. It's what he does. So I don't know if that's a real threat or not. He could have said anything on Twitter, and we'd all be torn as to whether to take it real seriously. I'm inclined to not take him very seriously on Twitter, because I think he says a lot of things. But he certainly is serious enough about this that he's not going to play in any of the preseason games. And then the ball is in the court, I think, of the Chiefs. And they're either going to say, all right, let's get this done. Let's sit down and really figure this out. Or they're going to say, our offer is our offer. Take it or leave it.
I think they've already done that. I think, and if they're not, if we're going what is true, which Andy Reid says there's no communication, this is not from the Chiefs side. The Chiefs are trying to do this, and here's the reason why. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this question, though. When Andy Reid says there's been no communication, do you think he means between himself and Chris Jones, or do you think he means between the team and Chris Jones?
I think the team and Chris Jones.
Because I'm not entirely sure that's true.
As I was going to say, I'm confident he means Andy Reid.
Andy Reid?
Yeah,
you think
I'm
Andy Reid?
confident about that. Yeah.
Like you said, Reid's focus is on the team, the 90 guys who were there, the 89 guys who were there right now, and getting ready for the next preseason game and getting ready in 2 weeks to face the Detroit Lions. He's not thinking about the Chris Jones situation until Chris Jones walks in the door. So I think when he says no communication, I really think that means, I haven't heard from Chris. He's not here. So why would I have heard from Chris Jones? So I would be careful to read too much into the idea that there's no negotiations happening. Now, it doesn't sound like they're hot and heavy. They're exchanging figures every day and working hard, burning the midnight oil to get something done. But I think to intimate that there's no communication at all between the Chiefs and Jones, I don't know if that's quite right.
To me, I think this has all been a surprise for the Chiefs. I do. I think that they thought a deal would be done by now, because everything that you've heard from the Chiefs has been very, very positive, dating back from after the Super Bowl to OTAs. Everything the Chiefs are like, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. We'll get it done. I don't think that they thought it would get to this level. Even Patrick Mahomes said, he goes, I didn't think it would. I thought he'd be here by now. But Mahomes is going to do what every single player says, and they're not going to get into another man's money. That's cardinal rule number one. Number two, you don't talk about their family, right?
Mhm.
The reason why I think the Chiefs have been kind of blindsided by this is because if it got to this point, like if I could have told Brett Veach on March 1st, Chris Jones is going to hold out until we don't know. He might even miss games. I think the Chiefs would have traded him on the spot. I think they would have done exactly what they did with Tyreek Hill. Because there's one thing that the Chiefs don't want to deal with, and that's this stuff. They don't deal with it. I think if you could tell Brett Veach, hey, here's a crystal ball, I can tell you this, that Chris Jones will not be in camp on the 24th, and this is all assuming that the Chiefs are in good faith. I'm assuming everything is in good faith with the Chiefs,
right?
Here, okay, because the Chiefs have been saying we want to get it done. We want to get it done. If the Chiefs are offering $24 million, then they're not offering in good faith. That you're being cheap, and then this is the Chiefs' fault. That's why I really do wish I knew numbers, because then I would be much more comfortable, saying to one person or the other, either one, you're being greedy, you're being cheap, you're not offering in good faith. Same thing for Chris Jones. I'm going to under the assumption that the Chiefs have wanted to get this done, and they're wanting to pay him because that's what we've been told. Now that can be a complete bunch of BS, but I'm just going with what I'm told. I think the Chiefs would be like, no, we're not dealing with that. We will trade you. We will get a first-round pick for you, Chris Jones, and they would. They still might get a first-round pick for Chris Jones. And we're just going to trade you, and we are going to move on. Because they don't deal with this type of stuff normally.
They don't. And that's why I do not think the Chiefs are going to budge. So I think he's either going to show up before week 1 or he's not going to show up till week 12. I do not think the Chiefs are going to budge on this because, frankly, when have they?
No, they've never
never
budged. They have a number in the only offer that they will budge and should budge is 15.
And I don't even think that's a matter of budging. I think that's just whatever it takes we'll do.
Yes.
Orlando,
you can have anything you want forever is the negotiating tactic that the Chiefs use with Mahomes.
Yeah.
But everybody else is different.
Orlando Brown is the best example of this, that we can win a Super Bowl with. We know for a fact we can win the division, we can win the conference, we can win the Super Bowl with you. We are still only willing to go this far with you monetarily. So I do not think they are going to change their offer at this point, at least substantially. I don't know what that offer is, but I don't think they will change it substantially. I, however, have a different viewpoint about if you had told Brett Veach this when free agency started. You go back to March 15th, started the league year. I don't think they would have traded Chris Jones. And to be completely honest with you, I personally think the answer would be, well, 6 games in the playoffs is better than nothing. Because here's the difference. There's no Patrick Mahomes on defense.
Correct.
The Kansas City Chiefs, John Dorsey, Andy Reid, Brett Veach, Clark Hunt, in the springtime of 2017, pinned the entire franchise on a 21-year-old Texas Tech quarterback. The entire franchise's trajectory and future history on Patrick Mahomes. I'm not surprised at all they pinned essentially like 2 seasons on Patrick Mahomes when it comes to getting rid of Tyreek Hill. Like, I'm not surprised at all that they wanted to do that. Defensively, you don't have that guy. You don't have the guy who, the pass rush is bad, but like we have literally the best athlete of all time at cornerback and teams literally cannot pass on us, so it does not matter. Offensively, you do. Offensively, you just won a Super Bowl where your quote-unquote wide receiver one was
a guy who didn't even have 1,000 yards.
A guy who didn't have 1,000 yards. And granted, Travis Kelce, Hall of Famer, I understand that. But outside of that one elite skill player, you had a bunch of like really nice pieces, and you just won a Super Bowl and had the second most efficient offense of all of the Patrick Mahomes era, only behind one of the 3 greatest quarterback seasons ever. Like, it's Mahomes Mahomes 2018, it's Rodgers 2011, it's Brady 07. Like, those are the most efficient quarterback years ever. And that's the only time your offense was better with Patrick Mahomes than it was last year. So I think you would say if Chris Jones is in the spot, hey, look, we'll take it. Fine. You want to make yourself into a mercenary for 1 year? More power to you. we will figure out a way. Because to take the point you've made for a couple of years now, what matters? The third week of the regular season or the third week of the postseason?
Chris Jones is going to test that theory.
He is. He absolutely
really
is. And that's kind of fun at least from my perspective. I assume from your perspective, at least a little bit, Dan. Like, I don't have an emotional attachment to this team. Like, I'm curious to see how this works. Can you really make it happen without your defensive superstar?
What would that be like?
Yeah.
If a guy just shows up for the final 6 weeks and takes a couple of weeks to get back into like game shape, but is fresher than anybody else on the field for weeks 15 through 18 in the postseason.
It's essentially what Dwight Freeney did for the last 3 years of his career, except Dwight Freeney was in his late 30s. Yeah. Chris Jones is in the prime of his career.
The reason I say, do you look at, would they have traded him? Because let's say you were like, oh, we need help with the pass rush, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say March 1st, you know that this is going to go down. You know that. Let's say the Chiefs don't trade Chris Jones for a first round pick, and then go in free agency, try to sign Javon Hargrave. There's your defensive tackle. You're going to get him for way less, and you also now have a first-round pick. Like, that's why I wonder. That's why I just don't see the Chiefs thinking that it was going to get to this level. I really, really don't.
No, I agree with that. Like, I'm sure they didn't expect it to get to this.
Yeah, Javon Hargrave, Dr. Thunder version of Chris Jones, his cap hits are, 6 million, 15, and then 26, and then you can get out of it.
Well, and I know this is not exactly the point you're making, but for what it's worth, Javon Hargrave is absolutely not the Dr. Thunder Chris Jones. I think Javon Hargrave is better than every other player who got signed this offseason at defensive tackle, other than Chris Jones.
Yeah, so that's my point.
Like, I think he's better than Quinnen Williams. I think and they're asked to do different things. I get that, but he's definitely better than Dexter Lawrence. I would take Hargrave over all those dudes.
That's why, hey, great.
Which I guess supports your point.
We'll pay, and you get a first round pick. But I think that they thought he was going to be a little bit, I don't want to say more receptive, but
I think they thought they could get something in the neighborhood of 26, 27, maybe even 28 million
I think
a year.
28 is more than reasonable from both sides.
We don't know what the hang-up is.
We don't.
We know very little here. If the hang-up is the guaranteed dollars or if the hang-up is the average annual value. I tend to think, and I don't have any basis for this other than like my gut, but I do think that Chris Jones is using the Aaron Donald roadmap. Like, I'm not going to play in the preseason, and the deadline to start the season is what's going to spur action. You're going to come and you're going to give me what I want. And I think the Chiefs will make a final offer, and that will be satisfactory to Chris Jones, or it won't. That's not revelatory. But I think that there will be a round of negotiating that gets done, because the Chiefs have to put together their 53-man roster against the cap, and they got to restructure somebody. Yeah. They got to do something with their current dollars. Yeah. And I think they would like that thing. They have been planning all this time for that thing to be a new contract for Chris Jones. If they had already made their final take it or leave it offer, and Chris Jones told them to sit and spin and see a week 8 or whatever it is, the Chiefs would have restructured someone else. Yeah. The Chiefs would already be prepared to do what they need to do to get their 53-man roster to be cap compliant. I think they still believe something can get done, that the gap can be bridged. And we'll see if that bears out or not. Maybe Chris Jones is dug in and says, I want $31 million a year, or I want it all guaranteed. I want the Aaron Donald contract +1, essentially. I want what he got plus, because I'm that good. And he's the only guy in football who can make that argument without anybody rolling their eyes. Like, Quinnen Williams couldn't have demanded Aaron Donald money. I don't think Javon Hargrave couldn't have demanded that kind of money. Chris Jones can.
Well, I don't think he can. I would roll my eyes at that. You've never even placed first or second as a defensive player of the year. You've been all pro one time. You've been right now. It's the whole situation.
Who else has 15.5 sacks from a defensive tackle position though? Who else can do that?
There's only one other guy, but he's done that once in the last 4 years. And that's why, to me, hey, you can hold out for however much you want. If I'm operating by the Chiefs, I get why the Chiefs wouldn't do that. That's not your market. You're you're at the club, and you got this one individual acting like they are, their stuff don't stink. They think that they're a 10. Nah, you about an 8. You're really nice, you good, but you ain't a 10.
Here's the other thing.
Maybe you're just an LCQ, or an LCC. You think you're a 10, but really you're an LCC. You're a last call cutie.
Oh, I think
you're a 10 at 2, but you're a 7 at midnight. Yeah.
Here's the other thing, though, that could happen. Brendan posed one side of this hypothetical, that if the Chiefs go out and they, in 2 weeks, nothing's done, and they go out and they have an easy time with the Lions, just punk the Lions on national TV at Arrowhead Stadium. Jared Goff gets sacked 3 times. George Karlaftis has a big game, whatever the case may be. Does Chris Jones start to realize, oh, maybe I'm a little more dispensable than I thought. Maybe I better go see. Maybe I want to be a part of this at whatever it is that they're offering me. The flip side of that hypothetical is, what if Jared Goff doesn't get sacked at all?
Yep.
What if he goes out and throws for 350 and the Lions win at Arrowhead, and Chris Jones calls Brett Veach and leaves a voicemail as the clock hits 0 at a dead silent Arrowhead Stadium and says, price of the brick just went up.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Yeah.
Here's one other date I want to give you real quick, because Dan, you're right. I mean, you've got to figure out the cap. I mean, you've got very real things that need to be figured out within the next couple of days. Here's another date for you. October 31st. That's the trade deadline. That is 2 days after week 8 of the NFL season. Chris Jones's self-declared drop-dead date. The Chiefs will play the Denver Broncos that previous Sunday, October 29th. The trade deadline last year included legitimate star players.
Last couple of years.
Yes, that has become one. That is almost as big now. And honestly, for big names, it is bigger than the start of the league year, the start of free agency. Just last year, okay? Here are some of the players who were traded. Roquan Smith, Christian McCaffrey, Bradley Chubb, Kadarius Toney. Chase Claypool is more famous than good, but Chase Claypool is at the very least famous. Like, those are the kind of guys that got traded. Like, hell, Nyheim Hines is just a backup running back. He started for teams in the past.
Year before that, Von Miller moved at the trade deadline.
Yep.
Jalen Ramsey's been moved at the trade deadline, I believe.
Chubb.
So that
Chubb was last year.
Yeah. So that, to me, once the Chiefs actually get to the start of the season, the next biggest date is not necessarily the return of Chris Jones. It is the trade deadline, because that might be a time you get a more desperate team to send you something a little bit better for him.
We got lots to get to. We'll get into more Chiefs coming up at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. We'll get a quick timeout. We'll also talk with Paul Myerberg on all things Big 12 football leading into week 0. That's all coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. I'm not saying that we spoke it into existence, or that we have the power to do so, but I'm not saying that we don't have that kind of power. But on this show a few days ago, we were talking about the Kansas native and the just incredible athlete Isaiah Simmons for the Cardinals, and how the Cardinals have just not used him in the right way. What's going to happen? Maybe he's just more of an athlete, not a football player. Well, the Cardinals decided to trade Isaiah Simmons to the New York Giants for a 7th round pick. He only has this year left, and then he's a free agent.
Didn't pick up the 5th-year option.
Didn't pick it up. So this is a flyer, see what happens for a 7th round pick for the Giants. I think this is a great risk. I really, really do. And it works out great, I think, for a lot of sports takers such as ourselves. We will either be right in he's a positionless player in the NFL. You can do it in college, can't do it in the NFL. Or, holy cow, Wink Martindale really figured out a way to unlock Isaiah Simmons, and the Cardinals coaching staff previously and this year is cheeks, because look what this cat is doing. I'm excited for that. I really, really am.
I think there is a very rational, even keel way to look at this. You can say, I think this makes sense for the Giants because it's a 7th round pick. You're probably, even if Isaiah Simmons is not a very good NFL player, you're not getting a better one in all likelihood with a 7th round pick. Doesn't happen all that often. So you might as well take the risk. Why not? And I think that Wink Martindale probably could find a way to use him 3-4 base for the Giants. They can bring him as a stand-up edge. Maybe that's the position they use him in. They've got 2 nailed-on starters in Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, but maybe you bring him in as a 3rd down only, third long only guy.
Package.
Yeah, you do something like that. Maybe, you bring Thibodeau inside, you bring the extra edge in. Sure, maybe you could end up doing something like that. I think it is also fair to say at the same time, draft evaluations die harder than maybe anything else in sports dies hard, because some people are just completely unwilling to give up on, no, he was a top 10 pick, man.
Yeah, being a former 1st round pick is real currency.
Let me ask you this. Then this is what I want. I know we're running up to a break here. If the Chiefs had cap room, does Veach make this move?
No. Well, no, because
he does like a busted 1st round pick, but I don't know if he likes trading assets for just busted 1st round
he's
picks.
done that all the time. Darren Lee, he did it for Reggie.
Nailed on linebacker.
Reggie Ragland.
Well-defined linebacker.
You're talking about
I don't think they would trade something for a piece that you just...
Yeah, well, you don't know what it is.
Because the Chiefs don't have a hole on defense.
No,
right
they
now.
don't. That's why I think they didn't go. I think they didn't go after him because of that. But they can't do anything because they've got no cap space.
Well, and even beyond the cap space, I think you don't have a wide open need at inside linebacker. So it's not like, well, we'll try to make him that. You don't have a need at safety. So there's no reason to do that. You don't have a need at edge right now. There's no need to try to turn him into that. I just don't think there's a place for him.
Unless you had a vision for what this is going to be. And that's why I'm surprised a team like the Giants, who are a playoff team last year, probably have designs on being a playoff team again this year, that they think they can experiment with this guy is kind of interesting. Unless they have a real firm idea. That player, that athleticism, that profile fits this role.
I think Wink Martindale says, you give me that kind of an athlete, I'll make it work.
That must be the case, is what I'm saying.
I think it's a risk worth taking if I'm the Giants. No question.
Here are the 3 things he's going to do in New York. Blitz, blitz.
You can
that first play, maybe he's in.
And that could work out very well. It really could. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Paul Myerberg on all things Big 12. We are back with maybe my favorite segment on the entire week to talk all things college football with Paul Myerberg from USA Today. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. And Paul, not only do you cover the sport of college football for a living, you also love college football maybe more than most people. I am so excited for week 0. Paul, are you ready for the season?
Yeah, I'm getting amped up, guys. What's funny is I saw someone on Twitter, I guess we call it X now, maybe another day or so ago, and he was like, man, if you are watching football week 0, then you're a degenerate. I'm like, bro, I've been waiting 8 months. Like, I've been waiting a long time. I'm going to have my behind on the couch at 2:29 p.m. Eastern and watch Navy Notre Dame, and I'm not going to move until I'm looking at this right now. I got FIU at Louisiana Tech, 9 o'clock start, CBS Sportsnet. That game's going to go till like 12:45 Eastern. I mean, how could you not be overjoyed about that? Like, how could you not? 7 o'clock, ESPN, guys. UMass at New Mexico State, not New Mexico, New Mexico State, and that's on ESPN. I mean, how can you not love America? And how can you not love this sport when at 7 o'clock you can watch UMass play New Mexico State on the biggest sport network in the world? So yeah, I'm excited.
The tweet, Paul, I think said something like, if you didn't go to one of these schools and you're watching one of these games, you're a sick person. And I guess that makes me Homer Simpson with that 6-month-old hoagie he was eating. It gave him food poisoning, if that's the case. I think we all
like,
are around here.
This is okay. Yeah. Listen, UMass and New Mexico State is like, that's the beer that you find in the garage. You know what I mean? That's in the garage fridge. And you're like, man, when did I have this? When was I drinking High Life? Oh yeah, that was my wedding. That was 8 years ago. It's probably still good. You know what I mean? Like that's the garage beer game. But I have never turned down a garage beer. I'm not going to turn down this one either.
Amen, brother.
Speaking of that UMass New Mexico State game, Paul, is there any better encapsulation of where the college football ecosystem is than the fact that UMass versus New Mexico State is on big ESPN in primetime, and the number 6 team in the country is hidden behind Pac-12 Network, like in Bakersfield, and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, makes you wonder how the Pac-12 is not going to exist anymore when you're at 8 o'clock on your network and ESPN's picking independent UMass against new Conference USA member New Mexico State. So, yeah, there's definitely something wrong with the Pac-12 and with the sport of college football to a degree when that's not in prime time. But, yeah, if you're in Bakersfield or any other of the 3 cities on the West Coast that get the Pac-12 network, you're going to love watching that game.
All right, let's get to the Big 12 when it comes to this. Any new news that has occurred here in training camps for any of the Big 12 schools that you think will factor into what's going to happen this upcoming year?
Yeah, you know, one thing that the last couple of weeks for Iowa State, and I understand Iowa State was never going to be a contender anyway, but the last couple of weeks for Iowa State, with their off-field news, with Deckers being gone, losing one of their top defenders, I just feel like this program and this team under the radar needs to be watched as an absolute dumpster fire. I know that's not the best answer because they're not going to compete either way, but I'm looking at that program right now and I'm wondering what is going on and what they're going to look like and what's going to happen to Matt Campbell, what his future looks like. So that's a program I've been watching. I'm trying to write something on him. I don't know if it's going to take off or not. But, yeah, I mean, that's an individual one. More broadly, guys, and we've talked about it a few times this summer, these new teams coming in, they're not going to impact the top, you know, the very top, BYU, Cincy, Houston, UCF. But it is really intriguing to me to watch these teams go in. I'm hearing good things about UCF, what they're going to get at quarterback, what they've done on offense that might be a little bit different to combat what they'll find in the Big 12. But if you want to look beyond the Texas, OU, Kansas State, Texas Tech, that kind of quartet that most people are having at or near the top, watching these 4 newcomers come in, graduate Group of 5 to Power 5, it's one of the top 10 storylines, I think, more broadly in all of college football. But clearly, OU, Texas, the final round, that's what I'm watching for at the very top of this league and how they react, and also what the reaction is when they go on the road. We heard Yormark yesterday say, hey, I'll be there, Coach McGuire, when they're in Lubbock. I'm expecting the same thing. pretty stupid comment, but I think it speaks to the fact that OU and Texas are going to be the bad guys again this year, more so than ever before. So how they respond, I think, is going to tell the story of their season.
It's not a great move, when the commissioner of the conference that has two teams still in the conference, when he says that. But deep down inside, he's saying what every Big 12 school that's going to still be in the Big 12 is thinking, though. So it's one of those things where in the water cooler, fans and everyone else, they kind of like Brett Yormark said that. It's probably not the most appropriate thing at the time, but everyone else is agreeing with him.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, the other 12 teams that are currently in this conference are certainly agreeing with Yormark. You don't want to say that out loud. I think it feeds into a kind of tinfoil hat QAnon idea that they're going to get kind of pushed around by referees and the conference office all season long. But look, I mean, I remember very well. I think it was 2010. I obviously don't remember that well. But Nebraska at Texas A&M, their final season in the conference, they played the Aggies. I think they lost 12-9 or 13-9. They had 21 penalties. The A&M's won. And I remember reading a recap of that game and reading the tea leaves around that program, and they were like, "Well, we kind of saw this coming. We kind of knew that we were going to get pushed around by the refs this year." I don't think that's going to happen to Texas and OU. I really, really don't, because of the idea that, yeah, if you're a team like, even if you're in the conference office, but specifically if you're in Manhattan or you're in Lawrence, yeah, you want to see them lose, but these are the flag bearers for one more year. And if Texas is a team that's going to get you into the playoff and make you a couple more bucks, I just find that hard to believe that they're going to try to give them too much of a hurdle to pass that. But yeah, I would hate to see them lose a game and have a bunch of penalties and have people think that it was, the fix was in. But clearly at some point this season, someone somewhere is going to write that.
Alrighty, let's get to the two local schools here. Let's first go with the defending Big 12 champs, Kansas State. We'll preview the game coming up next week, though. But just for their season as a whole, what is going to take them to the next level and repeat and make it back to the Big 12 title game? What's going to have to happen for them? What's a big factor for you? And what would end up having to happen for them to take a step back and, finish, a 7-5 type of season, and it just doesn't go the way that it can? Because I think that's kind of the window of it for Kansas State. How do you view kind of what can go right and what needs to go right, some surprises, and okay, what can go wrong for the Cats?
Yeah, I would go one better. I think their floor is 8-4. I think that this program has taken such a big step forward that there's like basically the foundation is so strong. I don't really see 7-5. Clearly, it's possible, but I put them between 8-4 and 10-2. I don't want to overthink it, right? I want to give Will Howard the benefit of the doubt. I think last year we all were a little bit queasy on a week-to-week basis. Will this continue? I think he's proven himself, so I'm going to take him out of the equation. It's about line play. It's about getting pressure on the quarterback. It's about finding guys who can cover on an island, and that's really it. I think these backs, Giddens and Ward, are going to produce. They're not going to have the flash or the splash of a Deuce Vaughn, but I think the running game is still going to be potent. I do think Howard's going to do enough to keep defenses honest. But look, you got to replace one of the top edge rushers in the country, and you got to kind of rebuild on the back end. So to me, if you can get pressure on third down, then I do believe they're going to stop the run. I do believe they'll run the ball well. So if you can win on third down and get pressure on the quarterback, that's really the key. And I think that speaks to me about the fact that this is no longer a program like maybe 3 years ago or even 2 years ago where you were thinking, man, they got to find this guy. They got to get depth up front. They've got to find a backup quarterback. A lot of those little details for K-State just seem settled, and I think that's a testament again to Kleiman and the staff. So in the really big picture, really simplistic, find an edge rusher. Find a way to get pressure on the quarterback in this conference. Because if you can get pressure on Chandler Morris, you can get pressure on Quinn Ewers, pressure on whoever starts the Tech. This is a winning team and maybe even, again, the conference chance. But even at 8-4, guys, this is still going to be a team that's a hard out and still a team that, to me, can't go worse than 4th or 5th in the final conference standing.
We're chatting with Paul Myerberg, who covers college football for USA Today. Joins us for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Looking forward to another full season of talking all things college football with one of the best in the business, Paul. But, Paul, we've been talking about teams that are a bunch of flash and headlines every year like Texas, or old news like Kansas State winning the Big 12 title last year. Let's talk some real football. Let's talk some substance. Let's talk a little Lance Leipold and the Kansas Jayhawks. this year, obviously last year, one of the best stories in all of college football, a lot of excitement for the program, new stadium in the next couple of years, all sorts of excitement. Going into 2023, though, are you more a believer that this team has indeed turned a corner, or do you need to see another year of it before you think, yes, this is actually going to be a more competitive team year in, year out?
No, I think the program has turned a corner, but that's a weird way for me to say that I still think that if they get to 6 wins, it's a very successful season. I think Illinois, we mentioned this, I think maybe a month or so ago. Illinois, to me, week 2, September 8th at home, that's the tipping point game. And I know it's early, but if you win that game, you're 3-0 going into BYU. You know what I mean? And I understand you still have to play at Texas. You still draw Oklahoma State. You obviously get the Sunflower. You're going at Iowa State, blah, blah, blah. Beat Illinois week 2, and I think this year gets to 6 wins. They're not going to struggle to score points. Obviously, Daniels has to stay healthy, but if he's healthy, they're not going to struggle to score points. I mean, I think this is a top half offense in the conference without even a doubt if he's healthy. But look, this is 127th ranked defense in the country last year. All right? And to me, the secret's out. The scheme is not going to catch anyone by surprise. They have to execute, but you're not going to get back to 6 wins. You're not going to build off that and take the next step. I think a lot of people are expecting, fairly or not, unless this defense rises 30 or 40 spots. And that's whether you measure it by yards per play, yards per game, how you do in the red zone, how you do on third down. It doesn't matter. Across the board, we need to see drastic improvement. To me, this is still a program that, to a degree, you're going to have to expect inconsistency. They will have a losing streak. They're not going to go more than 2 weeks in a row without, losing 2 in a row. That's just going to happen. But I think this program has proven itself, at least to me, that this is no longer just pencil in as the 13th or 12th team in the conference. I think this is team 7 or team 8 in the league because they can do what, listen, a lot of other teams can't say this. Kansas is going to score points. And I think just to build off of that for another year until you can get all the roster in shape to be a more consistent wall-to-wall top 22 unit, that's enough for me. So I'm banking on them going 6-6. Beat Illinois week 2. I think you can maybe dream a little bit bigger. But let's get real. This is not going to be an 8 or 9 win team. I think 6 or 7 wins is their ceiling.
Paul, who's your favorite dark horse in the Big 12 this year? A team that maybe is outside the preseason top 25, was outside the top 3 or 4 in the Big 12 preseason poll, but a team that you could see wouldn't surprise you if you could see them playing in the Big 12 championship game come December.
Yeah, that's a hard team to pick in terms of getting to the conference championship game because I do think it's a small group that I think can get there. But let's pick a team or maybe 2 teams that I think could be better than people expect. I think a lot of this year I thought that team was BYU. As I've talked to some people, I think there is some concern about the health of their passing game and also their just overall explosiveness. I'm going to dial them back a bit. So in terms of a newcomer, the team to watch is UCF. As I mentioned, I've heard really good things about what they're doing schematically on offense to take advantage of their speed. I think they are very fast. They're extremely fast. I think people are going to be caught by surprise in that respect. So I think they're going to have some success. I think this could be a team that really opens some eyes and sets things up for themselves to be one of the teams that fills the void that Texas and OU leave. I can't shake the feeling, guys, as well, that Oklahoma State's going to be better than we think. I understand that there's a lot of question marks. They basically lost, you can name it. I mean, they're also transitioning their defense. There's reasons to think that they're not going to succeed. But I look at the track record. I look at the fact that every time we've counted Gundy out, he's delivered. I don't think this is a 10-2 team, but the schedule plays in their favor. I would not be surprised at all if they're 8-4, maybe even 9-3 at the end of the year. I really don't. They don't play Texas. They don't play TCU. They're going to play OU at home. They get K-State at home. So I think they could surprise some teams. They don't have the roster and they don't have the at this point, the scheme, certainly on defense, to make you think that they can get to the conference championship game, but they're going to be in the mix. I really believe that. And I think if they are in the mix, it's going to remind a lot of people, for all his faults, for all the kind of dumb things that he says from time to time and the way that he is kind of, been the boss of that whole entire city of Stillwater for years. I think we got to remember that Mike Gundy's a really, really a heck of a good football coach. And I think if he can get to 8 wins, it'll be a reminder for all of us.
Who's the team that's going to disappoint? Many people forget that TCU actually played in the national title game because they lost, 87-4. But they did beat a really good Michigan team to get there. Is a team like, TCU, do they take a step back? Is there somebody that's being pumped up a little too much and they're going to fall?
Yeah, and this is not like, look, they went 13-2 last year. I don't think we're being cruel to them or being mean to TCU, but I just think number 15 or 16 in the country is premature. Let's say two positives. Clearly, we can run down the guys who are gone. You lose a guy like Quentin Johnson, guys. We watched him every week last year. He's off the charts. You lose a guy like that alone, you lose a lot. Let's just get real. But I've heard tremendous things about Chandler Morris. Just tremendous things about Chandler Morris. I don't think he's going to be like the impact that Duggan had, because Duggan put that team on his back last year, but I think his numbers are going to be outstanding. Also, end of last year, I talked to a lot of TCU people about what the future would hold, and I understand that they were in the moment. But what everyone told me around the program at that time was our roster next year, despite who we are losing, is going to be a lot better, because there was a lot of dead weight on that team. Let's just be fair. I think Sonny Dykes in the last 18 months or 20 months has done a great job of rebuilding that roster. In a sense, I don't think the star power is as high, but they are deeper. They're still not going to win this conference. I still don't think they're going to finish in the top 25. I think they're more like an 8-4 team. But look, you're not going to catch lightning in a bottle every year. I think if they go 8-4 this season on the back of last year, with the understanding of how much they lost, I still think that's a good season for them. But look, if you're gonna ask me to pick a team that's not gonna meet expectations, I think, like you said, I think TCU is the safest bet to fall short of that.
All righty, my last two questions. One, let's get your prediction here. Who do you got winning the Big 12? Who do you got in the title game?
I got Texas and Kansas State. I think Kansas State, while I do think Oklahoma is going to be dramatically improved, and I think you'll see that immediately. And I think the biggest thing that you will see is a team that plays less tentatively. Might embrace the energy that Venables brought to the table a little bit better. I do think they're going to be better, but I think Texas and K-State are a cut above. I'm picking Texas to win the whole thing, guys, because of the fact that the roster, I can't believe I'm going to say this, the roster is too dang good not to win this conference. Of course they won't, but I think they will. But I think Texas and Kansas State would be my picks to get there, and I would have UT, 4 months in advance. I'd say UT would win that game.
All righty, last thing I got. Did you see Brett McMurphy from the Action Network tweet out the Big 12 coach's favorite musical artist? Did you see that?
Okay, so look, I love Brett, and I've known Brett for a long time. But it's got to stop. It's got to stop, guys. Like every 2 minutes, if I go on X, let me just log on right now. Okay, here we go. Come on, man. Like, it's enough. I don't need to know that Kurt Ferentz listens to Big and Rich. Like, it's just enough. But let me go find the Pac-12, because it's there. He probably tweeted it 15 times.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Big 12.
Yeah, he did it yesterday at 10:05. Who's got the worst music taste?
Okay. Okay, it's Lance Leipold, Kenny Chesney. Kenny Chesney is to me, no disrespect. If you guys like Kenny Chesney, that's fine. But Kenny Chesney would be the worst. Would you want the best?
Sure.
The best
is
Mike Gundy with Prince. No. It's Stark with Tupac. But the thing is, Stark's not listening to Tupac. Give me a break. That's a joke. Hey, but the most true one, Joey McGuire and George Strait. I guarantee you, Joey McGuire, as a 17-year-old in 1988, was somewhere in Texas watching George Strait go on tour. That rings very, very true to me.
Paul, you're the best. We appreciate it. We will talk to you next week to recap some Navy Notre Dame.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Paul Myerberg, love him. He's the absolute best. The absolute best.
That's a good take about
Sark.
Yeah, Sark definitely not listening to Tupac.
Listen to Tupac.
It's also a good take about Kenny Chesney.
I do believe
it's not great.
I do like
boring music.
You ready? I'm really surprised that Kleiman went Cole Swindell. Like, has Cole Swindell put out a hit here recently? Like,
he's on the radio all the time. His music, that to me was the worst one. He's not good. No bueno.
Coming up, we got a lot to get to. Our Chiefs over-unders here, as well as one got to go. And boy, Dan and Brent are going to be in for a tough one. 580 Sports Talk coming to you, hour number 2 on this Victory Thursday. Royals taking care of business yesterday. We'll talk a little Cole Reagan's coming up at the bottom of the hour. We got one gotta go coming up on this 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero with you. We've got lots to talk about. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. And also let us know in our YouTube comments. Very easy to get to. Go to youtube.com, search sports 580 Sports Talk. Very simple, very easy. Let us know your thoughts. Hit the subscribe button as well. During the top of the commercial break, we've been discussing the Big 12 coaches' music opinions.
Alleged music opinions.
Yeah, there's no way Steve Sarkisian listens to Tupac. Zero chance of that happening.
Guarantee if you ask Sark, what's your favorite Tupac song? He would say Changes. Because
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yes. 1,000%.
100%.
Or California Love. Oh, yeah, I know that
Oh,
song.
I'm sure he bumped that all the time when he was at USC.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Guarantee you it's California Love.
Can he name 2 others?
Yeah.
See, I am going to dispute one thing you said, though. You said no way Dana Holgerson listens to Post Malone. I'm going to push back on that.
You
I
think?
bet you, first of all, I bet you Dana Holgerson partied with Post Malone last time he went through Houston. And I bet you that's why he's a fan. Because honestly, I could see the two of them hooking up. Because Post Malone, by all accounts, is like the coolest guy in the world. He's super nice and soft-spoken and is like super cool to hang out with. And Dana Holgerson sounds like he's chewing rocks and is like 8 cans of Red Man deep at any given time. I bet you
Red Bull. And Red Bull.
I bet you those two would hit it off in an instant.
I wish you'd used a different phrase.
I
other
know.
than
I
hooking up.
regretted immediately when I said that.
Dana Holgerson's in Post Malone /fic.
The one that I can guarantee is a 1,000% true is that Kalani Sitake really, truly does love Bob Marley. Like, have you ever seen that guy? That guy never gets upset. That I can totally understand. When he filled it out, he was genuine. No question about it.
Do you think coaches answer that genuinely, or do they look at every single questionnaire they ever get as a way to recruit?
Yes.
Yes, or they give it to some assistant and say, here, fill this out.
Yeah.
Pick who you played last on Spotify and write it down.
Yeah.
Well, I think with something like this, it's probably like just McMurphy texts the coaches.
Probably.
Hey, doing a thing. Who's your favorite artist? Which is what makes it really funny that Deion Sanders did not respond.
Have we gotten the SEC yet?
No, I don't believe so.
Because I want to know what Saban says. Because allegedly every Power 5, every FBS coach answered except Deion, which means someone either answered for or Nick Saban answered for himself.
I think Nick Saban likes music.
Oh yeah, I think so.
I mean, I guess he's got to listen to something in the car on his way to the practice fields. I'm going to go with the Eagles for what it's worth. I'm going to guess the Eagles.
I feel like he's like a Willie Nelson guy, like old.
I think
country.
he's not country.
Oh, I think Nick Saban's very country.
No, like I don't think he'll answer a country thing.
Maybe.
You know, like the
certainly
Eagles.
not.
You said the Eagles are not country.
No, I could see the Eagles or someone.
And Joey McGuire being George.
He's an Ohio guy. Maybe he's maybe.
West Virginia too.
Yeah, I don't think he's a Springsteen type.
No.
Kirby is totally naming a popular country singer. Guaranteed.
Yeah. He's probably like buddies with Luke Bryan.
Yeah.
I bet you those two hang out too.
Lane Kiffin's going to have like whoever the hot SoundCloud rapper is now.
G Herbo.
Lane Kiffin's like my favorite artist. Lil Baby.
You ever heard of Pop Smoke? Young Gravy.
Yeah.
Lil Durk.
These are all real names, in case you were curious. These are all real names.
Guap Dad 3000.
What about Lil Durk?
Yeah, maybe he is. R.I.P. to Lil Durk, though.
No,
that's Young Dolph. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Young Dolph is.
I didn't mean to kill you off.
Pop Smoke also deceased.
Yeah.
Lil Durk still out there, still doing his thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely doing his thing.
Whatever that thing is, he's still out there doing it.
Big King Von guy.
SoundCloud guy.
R.I.P. to him as well.
to King Von.
Well, we started this a couple days ago. We're going to continue with it. Our Chiefs over-unders. And we are going to go with one offense, one defensive player for today. And they are Isaiah Pacheco and George Karlaftis. So we'll first start with Isaiah Pacheco. The over-under on Pacheco is a number that is a lot lower than I figured it would be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the main reason why is health with that shoulder. 775.5 rushing yards for Isaiah Pacheco. I think this is pretty easy. Do you think he'll stay healthy? If you think he will get over 775.
Yeah, last year he had 830 yards on 170 carries, just under 5 per. Yeah,
this
I would
is
say
all
over.
about whether or not that shoulder or any other body part holds up for Isaiah.
How much job share is there going to be early on, and will that keep him from getting to that 150, 170
Well, he didn't
carries
hardly
mark?
take any carries the first part of the year last year, and he still got over.
That's true. He got to 170 carries anyhow.
So that's why
he might, even with the injury, still pace the same in terms of workload throughout the year.
Yeah.
And I honestly have no reason to believe he won't be healthy because the hand will be fine. I'm not worried about that. And the shoulder, he ran for 830 yards and almost all season. He had a torn labrum.
Yeah.
He ran with that almost all last season. So I have no reason to believe he's not going to be healthy.
Yeah, torn labrum doesn't worry me for a running back. He's not throwing the ball forward for yards.
It still hurts though.
I'm sure.
So I'm going to take the over just because
me too.
I think he's going to be healthy. And if this is a true number where if he is healthy, there is no shadow a doubt in my mind. He will get the over on rushing yards.
So to get to 776 yards, he has to run
like 40 yards a game.
40. I'll round up 46 yards a game. Can he run for 46 yards a game? Last year he ran for 49.
Yeah.
And again, like you mentioned, he barely played the start of the year.
Over under 5.5 touchdowns for Isaiah Pacheco.
5 last year. No receiving touchdowns. Is this just rushing touchdowns or is this total touchdowns?
We'll go dive into the sports book.
I'm going to say rushing touchdowns.
Okay, because I think he'll clear 5.5, no problem. Because I think, and we talked to Mitch Holthus about Isaiah on Tuesday's show, and
I think this is rushing.
Mitch has pointed out that Pacheco has, to the extent that he's been able to this offseason with the injuries and the recovery, but has worked really hard into making himself more of a weapon in the passing game. And for me, there's no reason he shouldn't be somebody who can make things happen in the screen game because he's fast and he runs hard and he runs to open space really well. But he only had 14 targets last year. I think he'll have more targets this year, and I think he'll be, probably catch a touchdown or 2. Rushing touchdowns are interesting. Chiefs had 18 of them as a team last year. 18 rushing touchdowns. Noah Gray had 1. McCole Hardman had 2. Mahomes had 4. Kadarius Toney had a rushing touchdown. So obviously the way the Chiefs run the ball is a little different than, the pass really is an extension of their running game in the red zone, particularly inside the 10, inside the 5, like we've talked about. So Pacheco's not like big. He's not the size of a prototypical goal line hammer, which is where you usually see the touchdowns accumulate for a running back. So I'm wary on this one, but I do think that even if he is ramped up slowly the first couple of weeks of the season, I still think he'll have a little bit more of a workload. He'll be a little bit more trusted in those spots. And so I do think he'll clear 5.5.
I can confirm, by the way, it is rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what I thought, maybe.
And I think, too, one of the things you have to account for, I assume the Chiefs are going to end up in goal line situations at about the same clip as they ended up in them last season. I don't think Jerick McKinnon's catching 9 touchdowns. So I think that is probably your number one well you can mine from to try to get some of those goal line carries for Pacheco is in all likelihood, because historically it has never happened before. You're not going to see Jet McKinnon score that often down on the goal line. So I would, again, touchdowns are tough, but 5 when you had a really uneven workload for the entire year last year. I assume he'll be a big part of the offense this year. I think I would go over there.
I'm going to take the over because I think he'll score 2 touchdowns in a couple games this year.
Okay.
So I'm going to take
a couple of multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, I really do. I think because I said this so many times, they should be better at short yardage with this offensive line. They should.
Maybe this is the year they'll quit screwing around and just play power football behind the best interior line in football.
Exactly.
But you could have said that last year too, and it was not the year. So,
well, they had Orlando Brown, and now they've got a better player. And
I'm talking about the interior line. That's who's really important if you're playing.
I just wanted to
short yardage
shot at Orlando
man
Brown
ball.
That's really all I wanted to do.
That's fine.
That's all I
You're
wanted to
allowed.
Unnecessary.
No, that's fine.
What's wrong? What do you have against Orlando Brown now? He won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, good for him.
And then he is not even eating up a lot of. What's the beef? I'm just confused.
Where's the beef?
Yes, where is the beef with Orlando Brown? I am confused.
That just, I don't know. Sometimes, it just is, right?
You've got the ick with Orlando Brown. He gives you the ick.
He's got he's got a beige flag.
I just learned what the ick was and how to use it fairly recently. So
New to me.
So that's when you're seeing I think it's mostly women who use this about men.
Correct.
But it's when you're seeing someone, you meet someone, and there's just something inherently about them that makes you feel like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like you can't quite, you might not be able to put your finger on it, or maybe you can. And it's like, oh yeah, his teeth were all like neon green. I don't know why, but it grossed me out and I can't talk to him anymore.
His car's dirty.
Yeah, exactly. You picked it up way quicker than I did. I'm in. Abby was trying to explain it to me, and I took all of it personally.
Like small personality flaws.
Yes,
that you just can't quite get over.
Yes, that sounds like that's what you have with Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. Let's go to George Karloftis. All right, I could not find George on any book because, well, not a surprise, right? So I thought we would put a good estimate.
All right.
A guesstimate, hypothesis. So I went over under 8.5 sacks. He had 6 sacks a year ago as a rookie and didn't play a ton early on. He's going to get a ton of reps for the first 6 games. He really will. 6 sacks, and he started to come on a lot last year. So I got 8.5. What are you going?
This one's tough because, again, sacks are so hard.
So did I put it at a decent number?
You give a good number for it.
Yeah.
A very good number. Good job with that number.
Or maybe I should I put 8.5 or should I put like 8.25?
I think technically you should probably put 8.25.
Yeah.
Because you can't get half sacks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just to get 8.5 sacks. That's what we'll do. Like that to me.
8.5 or more.
Yeah. We'll do 8.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Karlaftis, so I'll say, is it Laugh or Loft? Do we know? I don't remember how Mitch says it. I usually defer to him with pronunciations. Anyway, Furious George, I am going to lean with the yes that he does get to 8.5 or more. I mean, what did he finish with last year in the regular season?
6.
6. Then he had one in the postseason. So he had 7 over 20 games. He might have to be a little better with the pass rush with Chris Jones not there. Yeah, sure. I'll say yes. I'll say he gets to 8.5. That's a good number.
Dan, what do you got?
I think he's going to get the most attention. Like when you keep a running back into chip, it's going to be him who gets chipped this year. And that's probably not the case last year. They were chipping Frank Clark and maybe chipping Carlos Dunlap. This year, you're going to chip George because he is the most established edge rusher. Now, maybe that changes 7 weeks in if, Charles Menou comes back. I think Menu's going to be really good for this Chiefs team. But in the early stages, I think George's going to get a lot of attention, and we'll see how he handles that. I'm bullish on him long term, but there's not a lot of rookies, second-year guys who see like big jumps in their sack totals from defensive end positions. Like we haven't seen a lot of that recently. So I'm going to go under. I think 7, 8 feels about right for him. I don't think that would be a disappointment either necessarily, but I feel like that's a more realistic number to ask for George for year 2.
Hater. I'm going to take the
over. I knew the one time I go under, I was going to get called a hater. I knew it.
Hater. I'm going to take the over because I think George, with his motor and the amount of reps he's going to get, I'm going to take the over. I think he'll get 8.5 sacks this year. I hope that's good because if he gets 8.5, that's a really good year. I think I'm with you, Dan. If he doesn't get 8.5, it's not a bad year. I think anything under 6 is a bad year for him.
The fact that he got 6 as a rookie is a good sign because, like, you look at the other edges that were like drafted last year that weren't Hutchinson. And
Like Trevon Walker?
yeah. And even you go back a year, like you go back to the 2020, what would that be? The 2022 draft or 2021 draft?
Mm-hmm.
This is a 2021 draft. And just edge guys drafted in that draft. Like obviously you have Micah Parsons, who's unbelievable. And then it's a bunch of guys that, like, if you said 8 and a half for George, it would give him 14 and a half sacks his first 2 seasons. You know how many other guys that were drafted 2 years ago have 14 and a half sacks or more in their first 2 years? It's just Parsons and one other guy, Jalen Phillips from Miami. Nobody else is over that number. And the one who's the closest, Azeez Ojulari, is more of a 3-4 edge than a 4-3 like George is.
Alrighty, last one I got. This just came up with this one as well. Do you want to know who led the NFL in PBUs as a D lineman last year?
Well, since you're asking, I'm guessing it's George Karlaftis.
No, he was tied for second. Karlaftis had 7 PBUs last year.
Who was first?
Carlos Dunlap, his teammate.
Wow.
He had 8.
Wow. Dunlap is huge.
Long arms.
Yeah.
So I did that. Karlaftis had 7 last year. Did a great job of that last year.
Mhm.
Really good. So I'll do the same thing. We will go with 6.5 for Carlos Dunlap, or not Carlos Dunlap, for George Karlaftis on pass breakups.
I'm going to go under on that one. I don't know how you predict that. I mean, to be second in the NFL, that's obviously a high number. That doesn't feel like something that is easily repeatable.
What's interesting you say that is it kind of is.
Okay.
And the reason I mentioned that, here's Carlos Dunlap and his PBUs, which is kind of wild, that he has had in his career. He's had 15 one year, 8.8877. Like, this is something that Carlos Dunlap just does. That's his thing. Like, he's had a lot of them. You know, in 4 straight years, he went 15, 7, 8, 8. And then, of course, he only played in 10 games in 2020, so he didn't get to that number. Then in 21 and 22, 7 and 8. So if he plays, that's what he does. Is this, George's thing?
I need more data first. I'm going to go under.
That's fair. That's a fair thing to say. It might be, though.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
He did look like he had a bit of a knack for it last year.
Yeah.
Best I've ever seen at doing it is J.J. Watt from a defensive line position. He would block passes all the time. It was incredible.
15 in 1 year.
They didn't call him JJ SWAT for no reason.
What did he do real quick since I'm on good old PFR? Pass breakups. Not as 16 1 year, then 10, then 8, and then 7 a couple years. So who knows? Maybe it'll be George.
16. That's crazy.
That's a lot. That was when he was player of the year. Maybe George be that guy.
Maybe. That'd be awesome.
That would be great. Coming up next, we've got One Gotta Go, and then we'll talk with Rick Peterson. I want to point out on that bump that Dr. Phil went like way hard on that last one. He's like, you're ugly, you're disgusting. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then he goes with, I want to, end you.
Give me $200.
I feel like there's another level that you can go with before you're ugly, you're disgusting. You know what I mean? I feel like that's quite a bit of a jump there.
He's trying to make a point.
Yeah.
That's why he got paid the big bucks. That's why Oprah supported him. Got to be willing to take a stand.
Well,
you're only ugly, fine. You're only disgusting, fine. You're both, I want to kill you.
Yeah, just a bit strong. Alrighty, here we go. I think I know where you're going with this, Brendan. Don't know where Dan is. At the peak of their performance, okay? So you get to pick peak individual, okay? End of a game, you're down by 2 or 4 or 6 in football. End of the game. One got to go. Brady, Montana, Mahomes, Rodgers. One got to go. Who's going? At the peak of their existence. Like, they are the man with the plan, ball in their hand. Who you going with? But one's got to go. So you're going to take these 3, this other bum, to quote Brendan Dorzinski, get him out of here.
Yeah.
Well, one of those guys has ring singular, while the other 3 have rings plural.
Ooh, I never thought about that.
You want to narrow it down that way. There's only one guy in that who's missing multiple rings, who only has the one. And that's kind of the process of elimination that I'll use to say it's got to be Rodgers, even though, I mean, you may have just named the 4 best quarterbacks certainly I've ever seen.
Oh, no, those, to me, that's the list of top 4. I'm sorry, Peyton Manning, but you're not on my list of top 4. Though, like, if
you put Manning on that list instead of Rodgers, it'd be a much easier one got to go for me.
Yeah, it'd be Manning.
Yes.
Yeah. The reason I say this is if you just take away all the awards, take away the awards. Don't think Super Bowls, MVPs, any of that. To me, those are the 4 best quarterbacks to ever play the game.
Sure.
Because of just the way that they play the game. Like, the only guy I think on here that is a given is Brady, because he's done it too many damn times.
I would also say, though, that it would be fair to point out that Montana's maybe the least athletic of the 4 and more likely then to be able to make something happen evading a rush.
But, man, he was Joe Cool for a reason.
Yes, he was.
We found that out why he was Joe Cool talking to BYU AD.
Tom Holmoe, yeah. No, I like I said, Rodgers has to go for me, but that's a hard one.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes can stay. Brady never lost a game, so he stays, obviously. I'm going to keep Rodgers here, and I think the biggest reason why, and he played with great receivers
at
during
his
peak,
career. Though, Rodgers was unbelievable.
He is the author of the single best quarterback season in football history.
That's why I said at their peak.
2011 is the single best quarterback season of all time.
You're like, what, 3 picks?
One of his most famous drives of all time. You know who caught the 2 passes on that drive?
It was the tight end, wasn't it?
Well, you're thinking of when Richard Rodgers caught a Hail Mary. Richard Rodgers, who ran a slower 40 than like William Howard Taft, okay? That dude was slow as hell. Cement shoes. No, I'm thinking of later that season. Divisional round of the playoffs. Glendale, Arizona. Two Hail Marys on one drive.
Jeff
Janis, who literally, I'm pretty sure, owns like a car parts store in Upper Michigan now. I'm quite serious. I think that's what he does now. Like, that's it.
I want to know how you know that.
I know a lot of things. Super Bowl 45. Rodgers won Super Bowl win. Jordy Nelson was awesome. He was phenomenal. That was his coming out party, was the Super Bowl. He had 9 catches, 140 yards in that game. His starting tight end, his top 3 running backs, multiple linemen, all out for that season. At his best, I think he was as good as any quarterback who's ever played the game. Like, I think in terms of physical gifts, he's better than Tom Brady. But again, Tom Brady never lost a single game in 44 years as a quarterback, so it's hard for me to take him off the list. I would go with Montana. I think in terms of things that stand the test of time, I think there are fewer examples of that from Joe Montana, even though he is Joe Cool. He's got 4 for 4 Super Bowl rings. He also played with one of the 3 best football players to ever play, Jerry Rice. Regardless of position, one of the 3 best football players of all time.
No, only the second best receiver of all. I'm sorry, Jake. I have to do it every time.
I did. I
right.
almost didn't say that
That's
just
right.
to avoid this
That's
argument. But no, I'm keeping Rodgers. I'm dumping Montana.
There's not. It's just your prayer. But Rodgers at his peak, like physically, he could do stuff that like Rodgers at his peak was like Mahomes at his peak right now.
Right.
So that's why I think.
But if you're just talking about physically gifted quarterbacks, then you have to include John Elway, and I don't want to include John Elway.
No, you can't include John Elway in this situation.
Never first team All Pro.
Never first team All Pro. That's why Phillip Rivers should never make the Hall of Fame.
Him and Case Keenum basically the same. John Elway basically Case Keenum. Never first team All Pro.
I don't think Phillip Rivers will get in. He is going to have a strengthened push from the analytics crowd, but quarterbacks within the next couple of years are going to be like wide receivers where there's just too many.
Which one's got to go for you, Jake? You didn't answer.
I would go Rodgers. But that's really hard because I think I got shoved Joe Montana down my throat by my dad for my entire life. So I got to keep Montana, Brady, Mahomes currently. The fact that he's won, and I say this a lot, I said it a lot of mic'd up. Whenever the Chiefs get down by 10 figures, bet money line on the Chiefs because you're more than not going to be right. That's incredible to me.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you 4 quarterbacks. 3 of them are from the same division, but the other quarterback in that division is Jared Goff, and I know you would both pick him. So I'm going to give you 4 quarterbacks. 3 of them are young. 1 of them is not. Who do you get a 5-year fully guaranteed contract with one of these quarterbacks? Which one are you taking? You need to win a Super Bowl. Otherwise, like, your family is sent to Siberia. Okay. I got to add some stakes to this. Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love, Justin Fields, and I'll give you Kenny Pickett as the 4th because I know you would all kick out Jared Goff.
Man, first thing I'm doing is going to Burlington Coat Factory and buying some outerwear for my wife because we're going to need it. If we're
get
going
that cold gear.
We're depending on one of those quarterbacks.
The answer is none of the above.
The answer is Justin Fields. And I think the answer is Justin Fields because he's the most physically gifted of the quarterbacks. And I think you can put something together with that. Now, do I think Matt who's there?
Eberflus
and their offensive staff are the right coaching staff to put it around Justin Fields in Chicago? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But the physical gifts, the running ability, it's all there. Like he could have in the right system with the right coach, the right people around him, he could have a year, I think, that rivals what Lamar Jackson did when he won the MVP. I think he's that capable.
It's not Kirk. Can't do Kirk. Love Kirk.
Yeah, we know what Kirk is.
Can't do Kirk. Who are the other 3?
Love, Pickett, Fields.
Oh my gosh. Give her.
I'm going to sound super biased. I don't really. It's fine. I know what Kirk Cousins is. I actually like Kenny Pickett a lot.
And you know what? I'll go Kenny Pickett as long as Mike Tomlin's his head coach because I know they're going to have
I'm his head coach.
You're his
not Mike Tomlin. I'm the head coach. I am coaching this team. And if you don't win the Super Bowl in 5 years,
look at my head coach, dog. I'm definitely going to Siberia.
Wait, are you coaching every one of them?
Yes. I am building the roster.
It does not matter.
Okay, well, okay, you're picking Kenny Pickett. Fine. I like Kenny Pickett a lot. I know Justin Fields can't throw. Jordan Love might be the worst quarterback in the league, but he also might not be. And because I don't know, I'm going to pick him. We're gonna have fun on this trip to maybe being like executed in the Ural Mountains. Dan?
Okay. Mine is not about quarterback.
That was not a fun one. Gotta go. That was torture.
You're the one who, before the segment, was like, I'm going to screw you guys with mine.
Yes, and I did, but it was a fun one because I'm talking about fun players. You're talking about bummy ones.
Hey, they might be fun.
The 4 logos of the major sports leagues, MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL. One got to go. I'm bringing this up today because the NBA has decided somehow that 8/24. I know why, but they've decided that 8/24 is Mamba Day, a day that we celebrate Kobe Bryant. And lots of people, I guess, put out like photoshops of the NBA logo. Should be Kobe Bryant now. Chris Creamer, the logos guy,
I got my
sports
answer.
logos guy, put up some prototypes, and I think that's ridiculous. The original NBA logo is great with Jerry West. Keep it how it is forever. Anyway, your answer, Jake.
Yeah, they should never change it because that's the best logo. Jerry West, they call him the logo. That might be the most just baller nickname that you can have. So I'm keeping the NBA. I'm keeping the NFL, the shield, all that kind of stuff. It's completely lame, but that's all right. So then it comes down to the NHL and MLB. And I'm going with the MLB, and here's the reason why. The MLB logo's got to go because someone pointed out to me a while back that it looks like a bird trying to eat something with the ball coming at him. And I cannot not see that because the helmet and the nose, it looks like a bird. So no, I gotta get rid of the MLB one. And I'm sorry if I just ruined the MLB logo for it.
I see it.
I can't do it. It's gotta go. It's gotta go.
And the NBA one is the best. That stays. MLB's, I like the silhouette. That's cool. The other two are both shields. The old NFL one was better. The one with all the stars instead of just 4.
And the little curly L.
Yes.
I agree with
that.
that.
That one was much better, but the NFL is the better of the two shields. The NHL's looks like clip art. It looks like it's built into Microsoft Word, and you go to the Windows 98 clip art folder.
One thing about the NHL has been that way forever.
Yes, they've only ever changed their shield twice. They've had 3 logos since 1917, and 2 of them were orange with the lettering NHL reading like down from left to right, opposite, and now it is silver with it reading up from left to right. That's one that's probably got to go for me too. Though I would like to see Major League Baseball update their silhouette.
Looks like a chicken.
Make it like something cool happen, like somebody swinging the bat. Like if they had a logo that was Ken Griffey Jr., like finishing a home run swing, that would be the best logo.
Yes, I agree with that for sure.
The junior swing is so iconic.
Yes,
yeah, I'm with you on that one. I am.
Or it could be Bartolo Colon hitting a home run. That could be the silhouette of the MLB logo. That would be even better. Helmet falling off and everything.
Really quick, we have to get the pistol here. I want to give a shout out to Randy in the YouTube comments, who says, found you guys on YouTube, usually listen on the radio. I must say, none of you look like what I envisioned when listening.
Way sexier. I know. Now you know why we all landed smoke shows of why.
That's big fact.
Not bad, just not the face with the voice. He also sent an emoji, but it doesn't show up on the screen. Randy, thank you for listening. And I hope it's not. I'm glad it's not bad. I will just say that.
The smiley face emoji gives me reassurance, and I needed that. Thank you.
Coming up next, Rick Peterson joins us to talk a little high school sports here on 580 Sports.
Joining us now on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, the absolute best in the business at doing what he does. That's Rick Peterson, who covers all of our local teams for topsports.news. Head to the website, find all the coverage of all the high schools and Washburn University here in Topeka and Shawnee County. You can also follow Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, we are now just 8 days from the start of high school football. How excited are you?
Oh, I'm ready to go. Yeah, I get excited every year. And I always tell people my job actually gets easier once they start the games in all sports because getting everything done in the preseason is more of a challenge.
Yes, I can agree to that 100%. I think we all here know the feeling. Hey, real quick, Pistol, before we do get to football, because we didn't get to chat last week on the show. It's been a couple weeks now since the NHRA was in town. We got to chat. You, myself, and our pal Larry Latimer met up after the race this Friday. I've only been once, and now I am miserable that they're not coming back. That was an unbelievable experience, and I am officially sad that is the last time the NHRA is going to be in town.
Yeah, I am too. And you had been there for the first time. I had been to every single one of them. And so we got a little different perspective, and they're both good perspectives. I mean, everybody feels bad about it. The bad thing is I don't think anybody's doing anything about it. I think this could have been avoided, and I think the county probably could have done some things to help keep what has been the biggest spectator event in Topeka. But I'm afraid it's too late now. So it is sad.
Pistol, what was it like seeing the Model T in action?
Yeah. It was good. It was good. And me and John Forrest, we love those days.
Well, Pistol, we loved reading the coverage over at Top Sports, and we'll
I love you, Pistol.
Be reading that a lot to remember the good times. The countdown too. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Go check that out if you haven't over at topsports.news. All right, Pistol, we've got some football to get to. It's coming up in 8 days. Our first broadcast of the year will be Topeka West versus Seaman. But as we look at the entire city, and it's unfortunate, of course, that not every team in the city is in the same league anymore. But right now, if you had to, put some sort of stake on, I think this team is going to be the best team in the city this year, who would be the number one, or who might be in contention for that top spot?
Well, I think Washburn Rural is going to be very good. And I think they're going to be able to compete in 6A this year. It all comes down to depth. It all comes down to injuries. It all comes down to winning the close games. But I think they're going to be very good in 6A. I think Hayden's got a chance to win 3A. I think at the very least get to the championship game. They lost 2 games last year, both to a very good Holton team, and they got really good skilled people. They still got, they lost some really good linemen, but they still got some pretty good linemen coming back. And I think Bill Arnold's team's going to be a real contender.
Let's start with that Hayden group, Pistol, because you're right. I mean, that Holton team last year was phenomenal. There's a reason they played for the state championship and took on Andale, which is on, I believe it's the longest winning streak of any team in the country right now. But the way Hayden brings back not just a ton of talent, Pistol, but every single one of those players is really dang good. And it's hard to replace a Joe Otting. Obviously, he's going to Notre Dame. It's hard to replace a Ben Evans, who was their best defensive lineman last season. But with that many skill position players back, with that many solid defensive players back, I personally see no reason why they shouldn't at least be considered one of the contenders for the, Final Four and onward part of the Class 3A tournament. It's hard for me to see another team with that much top-end talent returning in that class outside of maybe Andale.
Yeah, and like I said, until they prove otherwise, everybody's got to start with Andale. But I really think Hayden could make it to the finals and give themselves a chance.
We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, previewing the high school football season, which begins next Friday right here on 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you're following Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick and checking out his website, TopSports.news. The absolute best coverage of all of our local teams is at TopSports.news. As for Washburn Rural, the other team you mentioned just a moment ago, Pistol, I am fascinated by Rural because they have been so good several years in a row now. And while they, I think, lost some key pieces from a year ago and some of their depth, they return about half their starters. Tight end Lucas Hanks, who's a stellar player for them for 4 years. He's graduated, moved on. Same with Amir Sabarini. Same with several other players. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the state of Kansas, for my money, in Branton DeWeese. Titan Osborne is a new number 1 receiver for them who had a great year last year. And they've got multiple legit college Division I level players on the defensive side of the ball as well. I think that they, in 6A, might have as much returning top-end talent as anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do. And when I've talked to Coach Bueller, we talk about how good they are and how their talent they have on defense. And of course, we just talked about, Branton DeWeese and the pieces they have on offense. The thing they've won 8 games 2 years in a row. That's very good at the 6A level. What they have to do is find a way to like win that one game that kind of puts them over the top and gets them to that next step. And I think they can do that. But, that comes down to everybody. Everybody's got to win that one big game to get to the big game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the Junior Blues are at.
One of the other teams that I know everybody is going to be paying a lot of attention to is Highland Park out of the Meadowlark Conference. Last year, obviously a historic year that community is never going to forget. You had one of the greatest players in team history in Trey Richardson, one of the best players in the state last year at any position, and a lot of other guys who had great years but have since graduated. So there will be a handful of returning players, but a bunch of new faces as well. What do you make of Highland Park going into year 2 in the Meadowlark Conference, where they should still be one of the better programs in that league, even with a bunch of new faces?
Well, and I talked to Jermaine Monroe last Friday and was out to practice, and it's a whole different atmosphere. It's a whole different, there used to be years where the Highland Park had trouble getting into 20 for participation numbers. Jermaine thinks they're real close to 70 this year. They have in like the high 20s, I think it was, 28 maybe, just freshmen. There's an excitement. We talked about the fact that people in the hallways are talking about football now for the right reasons. And I think they can build off that. And let's face it, some of those guys that are seniors now and juniors now went up against those good guys you just talked about. And I think that will help too.
One other a newer conference that's been around for 6 years now, but what I think is one of the better football conferences in the state, the United Kansas Conference. And of course, we've got the 3 teams in there now with West Seaman and Shawnee Heights. Let's just do a quick look at all 3 of those, Pistol, because I think there's some real potential for sure with all of them. Seaman is obviously going to have its sights set on another return to the postseason. Shawnee Heights, playoff wins in each of the last 2 years. And Topeka West as well, obviously going through a little bit of a change now. Trey Parker taking over the full-time role at Topeka West as the head coach of the Chargers. What do you make of the landscape in the United Kansas Conference for those 3 in particular, but also just considering how deep that league is from top to bottom?
Well, let's start with Topeka West, and they're going to have trouble winning games. Other than Turner, they're going to have trouble winning games in that conference this year. But I love what Trey Parker's doing. I love his enthusiasm. I love his patience. I love what he's trying to do with those kids, and just give him some time. Hopefully he can get some good kids coming out of the middle schools to come to West that'll help their numbers, help their depth, help their talent level. And I like what he's doing. Shawnee Heights had a very good season last year. 5-5, but there's 5-5 and then there's 5-5. And I thought their 5-5 was a very competitive year. And, coming back with kids like Alan Bowman at running back and some good linemen on both sides of the ball. I think they're kind of a little bit in that area as rural, in that they got to prove they can beat, knock off one of those really good teams in that league and in the 5A level. And then maybe they can parlay that into more success. And then I think Seaman's going to be good. I think Seaman, they were 4-4 last year, but as Coach Swafford reminded me the other day, they were 4-1 at one point. So, then they had some injuries and it just didn't play as well as he thought they should or could. But I think they're going to be good. I was out watching their practice. One of the first practices I went to. They're big. They got good skill people, and I look for them to be a contender in the UKC.
One thing, too, that is going to help Seaman this year, Pistol, is the fact that they're going to play a full schedule, because we remember middle of last season, they had such a hard time filling in. I want to say it was week 5. They ended up having a bye week in the middle of the year. That's tough when you only play 8 regular season games. So having that full schedule, I imagine, is going to be huge for them once you get to that back half of the season.
Yeah, they played 8 total games. And that's you got, and let's face it, kids want to play games. They don't want those bye weeks.
Yep.
They don't want to have to go to practice and then not get to play on Friday night. So I like I said, when I was out there, there was a lot of kids that immediately caught my attention. And I thought, okay, they're players to watch this fall.
We're previewing the high school football season here in Topeka and Shawnee County with Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. It's our Invista Credit Union High School whip round with Pistol joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And make sure you're over at TopSports.News to check out all of Pistol's coverage of all of our local teams. Let's get to the last couple in the city here, Pistol, and we'll start with Topeka High, the city's flagship school. And I know that's a program that has been through some tougher times as of late. I know Carlos Kelly has put a lot of, hard work and a lot of time into building that program back up to what it was just a few short years ago. Where do you feel like Topeka High is right now in terms of trying to develop that winning culture again?
Well, Carlos is again, kind of like Trey Parker, very positive. He's got a lot of enthusiasm. He's a Topeka kid. I mean, I covered Carlos in high school for Highland Park when they made the state semifinal. So go look that up, buddy. That's been a while, but no, he's going to do it. The thing with them is, and I don't want to put the blame on anybody because I don't know where the blame lies, but they faced an unfair schedule last year, and they're going to face an unfair schedule this year. So they got to get through these 2 years, and then maybe give Carlos some more autonomy and getting some of those non-league games. And I think they got some good young players, Jaden Mormon, some people like that. And I think they'll make some. But the key this year is they just need to make some progress.
Jaden Norm is going to be a stud. Doesn't matter where he's playing. He is an absolute bona fide stud. I know Carlos Kelly definitely excited about his development as he enters his junior year. The last team in the city, Pistol, we'll get to before we let you go. You want to talk about a tough schedule? How about the newest Keisha member, Care Paravel, who last year I thought at 4-5 put together a very impressive start to their time playing a full Keisha schedule. They bring back a lot of talent this year, but they play a gauntlet of a schedule. They start with Axtell week 1 coming up Friday night next week. They've got Linden and Burlingame back-to-back weeks at the end of September, which are 2 legit state title contenders and 8-man. That's going to be another uphill climb, but having a veteran team, I think, helps a lot with that schedule.
I think last year they didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. And Coach Benura told me that the other day. He said half the battle is knowing the teams and having a scouting report for some of the teams. That was their first year in Keisha, and a lot of those teams, about half those teams, they had not only not played before, they knew very little about them. So I think just going through last year, getting some experience under their belts and things like that. And then you mentioned they do have good talent coming back, and they've had some injury problems they had to fight through last year too. I still think they will be much better. Now, we'll see how that record plays out, but I think they're going to be much improved.
Definitely hard to plan for a team. I'm looking at Linden, which was on their schedule last year and this year. Linden wasn't even an 8-man team until last year. They were an 11-man school. So you want to talk about hard to scout? How about a team that has not played the 8-man game before? For all the best preseason coverage of all of our high school football teams in town and around Shawnee County, head to TopSports.News. That's where you'll find the work of the one and only Rick Peterson. You can also find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick, and he joins us at this time every Thursday for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. Pistol, we appreciate the time. Looking forward to actual games we get to preview coming up next week. Can't wait to talk to you then.
I'll look forward to it.
That is Rick Peterson from TopSports.News, our Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. And as I mentioned to Pistol, our first high school football game of the year is coming up next Friday night. Seaman versus Topeka West. It will be at Viking Stadium up in North Topeka.
Some jamborees this Friday night.
Yes. Jamboree
Late
season.
Friday night.
The Jambo.
They're moving them back.
The Jam.
Good.
On account of the heat. Yeah, it's a smart
but
thing.
Isn't Friday supposed to be a little bit cooler than like
101 relative to today? Yeah.
Yeah, much better in that regard. We've got half of 580 Sports Talk left to come, including some Royals talk after the top of the hour news.
580 Sports Talk, hour number 3 here on this Victory Thursday. That's right. The Royals earn a win up in Oakland. Therefore, they get the day off today.
Is that how it works?
That's how it works. Fun fact, actually, when they beat Oakland in earlier this year, did they have an off day after that game? When did they play Oakland? I'm not. No, they didn't. They didn't. Nope. So that's why they said, "Hey, you finally got a win over the A's. We're gonna give you a day off." Now they start another 3-game series with the Mariners coming up tomorrow, up in Seattle. It's not Petco Park anymore. What's it called?
Yeah, it is. Oh no, Seattle.
It's not
It's
Safeco.
It was never Peck. Yeah,
Petco's in
It's
Pittsburgh.
T-Mobile Park now.
T-Mobile Park.
So there is a T-Mobile Park, there is a T-Mobile Arena, and none of them should be confused with the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City.
Correct. What will the name of the stadium be when the Royals build it wherever?
The worst name you
it'll
can think
be
of.
terrible.
Yeah. Cerner Stadium.
I don't think that's going to be happening.
Community America Park.
They already have a park.
Used to.
They don't have it anymore?
No, I think that's just Legends Park or Legends Field now. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to Google corporations in Kansas City.
Garmin Stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coke. Coke Field.
No.
I don't think you can do that. But that's what's going to happen. So we got Royals baseball coming up tomorrow.
Wait, why couldn't you do that?
Coke Field? Just
Dog, they named Pittsburgh's football stadium Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, they did.
There's literally no depth to putting a company name on a stadium now.
facts. GEHA Stadium.
Gross. Chiefs ain't paying me.
Field at Arrowhead.
Stadium.
No, it's what I'm saying, but no, it's going to be GEHA Stadium
No, yeah.
where the Royals play.
I will say this about when eventually they build a new Arrowhead or totally refurbish Arrowhead or whatever. Hopefully they do a better job putting GEHA's letters on the stadium. It looks like a kid put stickers on the stadium. It is so bad. There's the east facade, sure, throw GEHA up there. Slap. It's like the flex tape guy. Slap over. It's horrible.
They're just big fat heads.
It is. It's like big fat head letters on the side of the stadium. It's terrible. It's like, oh yeah, there's about 18 inches of open concrete here. GEHA. Slam it on there.
Gotta get their money's worth.
I guess.
So no Royals baseball today, but they won yesterday. So let's give away some Royals tickets.
All right.
Do we want 11 because of Cole Reagans?
It's a lot of work for me.
Throwing out 11 Ks.
How about 6 because he threw 6 good innings?
That's my vote.
Or we could do 3 because he allowed 3 hits. Didn't he allow 3 hits? I thought it was 3.
2. It was 2 hits.
2. You want to do 2 for 2 hits?
Let's do 6. A happy medium.
Okay.
6. I'm not going to say it a third time.
785-272-9429. Be caller number 6 for giving you Royals tickets.
Royals tickets. That's right.
To a game of your choice, by the way.
Yep.
There aren't a ton left.
No.
But to a game of your choice.
You can go to Pittsburgh, Boston, Chicago White Sox, Houston, Cleveland, or the Yankees. You get to pick. Call number 6, 785-272-9429. Got What Is Wrong With You? And Tim Fitzgerald will be joining us. Talk a little Cats. I want to talk about the Royals, though. Cole Reagans.
Mm-hmm.
Good outing. Cole Reagans, since he has been a starter for the Kansas City Royals. 6 starts, 2.08 ERA, 47 Ks, 10 walks, almost 6 innings per start. And he doesn't allow a lot of hard hits. When your OPS as a pitcher is under 6, that's excellent. This is why I wonder if the Royals shouldn't trade another big league guy to get potential guys like Cole Reagans. Now, this is probably the exception, not the rule. But there are times where, the Royals picked out Cole Reagans because they liked the scouting report and they were able to trade Aroldis Chapman for Cole Reagans. Okay. And the reason why I say this is, and this is where, to me, I'm going to anger a lot of Royals fans right now. And I'm not talking about trading Bobby Witt. I'm talking about, if you could trade Salvador Perez.
We got a winner real quick, guys.
We do?
Yes.
Who?
Shout out to Brian.
Congrats, Brian.
Hopefully I don't upset Brian by saying, what if you trade Salvador Perez and you get a version of Cole Reagans? Like that's exactly what this Royals team needs. I know it sounds wild and I know it sounds stupid, but I don't think the Royals are far off because their pitching is so bad. But let's say the Royals trade Salvador Perez and they eat half of his contract. Okay. Right. No one's going to take all 20, right? I doubt it.
It depends. I mean,
okay.
There in trades like this where there's a lot of dollar value still left on the contract, it's more and more common to see teams say, okay, we'll take a certain percent, we'll eat a certain percentage of it, but that means we want more in return.
Correct.
So it becomes negotiable. The dollar value becomes part of the trade, essentially.
You buy a prospect, kind of. So look, I'm just gonna say that they'll buy half of it for this upcoming year. Okay. That means that the Kansas City Royals on their books, without arbitration or anything like that, have $29 million on the books. 29 million. That's it. 29 million. Everybody else is either pre-arb or arb. All right. The most expensive guy for arbitration, probably going to be Brady Singer. Okay. So you trade Salvador Perez. Let's say you get Cole Reagans in return, right? So we got 2 Cole Reagans coming up. So you've got then Brady Singer, Daniel Lynch, Cole Reagans, and Reagan Cole. All right. So we got those 4 guys.
Big league starting pitcher X.
Yeah. Okay. But similar to Cole Reagans, because Salvador Perez is not going to bring you back, a really good starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. We know that. Mm-hmm. But I think he could get you, Reagan Coles, that type of thing. So you've got that. This is where I want John Sherman, and this doesn't even include Bobby Witt Jr. This is where I want John Sherman to spend money. Sometimes in baseball, unless you are the Rays, and last time I checked, JJ Piccolo and Lonnie Goldberg and that Royals staff ain't the Rays, okay? They're not. Go out and spend money. An example, go out and get Eduardo Rodriguez, or go out and get Blake Snell. Go out and spend money. I mean, I'm talking richest contract if it takes it. Then your starting rotation could be Blake Snell, Brady Singer, Cole Reagans, Reagan Coles, and Daniel Lynch.
Again, Reagan Cole's not a real person.
Not a real person, but I'm talking about
stand-in.
Get somebody like that who you think has a lot of upside, because the trade for Aroldis Chapman and for Cole, you saw the upside with Cole Reagans. When that trade happened, we were like, this dude's got some nasty stuff potentially.
No, I kind of hated on it.
Yeah,
did you really?
Yeah, kind of. Well, at least
that is definitely revisionist history, because we were talking about a 25-year-old who had 2 Tommy John surgeries. I want to say
Fulton thought it was a good return.
Maybe he did. Fulton, sees everything through his
rose-colored glasses.
He sees it through crown vision, really.
But Cole Reagans is a 25-year-old, 2 Tommy John surgeries, formerly a first-round pick. Yeah. Yes, there's that in his background, but it looked like we were trending towards a relief future.
So no. You brought up a great point. And I remember this now because I forgot that Cole Reagan had, Tommy John. He said
had twice.
Yeah. He goes, if Cole Reagans can get to the point before Tommy John, this is going to be a great trade. That is what he said. Okay. And right now, looking
six starts in, he's striking out batters at a level that only Spencer Strider is exceeding as a everyday, every fifth day starting pitcher in baseball right now.
And I don't know if it will work out. Odds are that it doesn't. Okay. My point being is that I think their lineup with Garcia, Bobby Wood Jr., Massey, Vinny Pasquantino, that you know, Waters and Isbell and MJ and, you know, Prado, you got Fermin, you know, you've got enough to make a lineup where you say, hey, you know, at least in the last couple of months, they put runs on the board.
What have they been, like a top 10 lineup last
something like that
couple of months?
Just go out and spend the money on some pitching, and that's it. That is the best way. And I'm not talking about trying to win a stadium. I'm not trying to win a vote. I'm just trying to say, hey, I am an owner who is actively trying to put a competitive. And I'm not saying they're going to win 90 games next year if you go out and get Blake Snell.
You don't need to win 90 games to win this division is the thing. That's
the thing. I'm just so...
Yes, that's how the Royals need to be looking at this. Is there is nobody in this division who is going to either be a 90-win team at the end of this year or has the resources, has the history of using resources to go out and put together a 90-win team. If we go put an 85-win team on the field, we got a shot to win the Central if things break right for us. And now, that is what I don't think that is as far off if, and these are big ifs, but if the offensive improvements we're seeing are not just midseason blips, they're the real deal for guys like Massey and Garcia. And I'd even throw Kyle Isbell, who swung it's been slightly below average, but with his glove, slightly below average, all you need to be an everyday center fielder. Like Kevin Kiermaier made a career out of like a 85, 90 OPS plus and great defense. Kyle Isbell could do that.
Especially
or has at least the last 2 weeks.
Especially at
or two months. So if that improvement is real, and this Cole Reagans thing is the real deal, because he's pitching like a number two,
and that's
number
why
one in a rotation.
It sounds crazy because they've won 41 games, but I don't think they're totally that far off to being competitive.
It's as simple as it's not. If it were as simple as, oh yeah, go get a starting pitcher, but they probably got to get a relief arm or two as well.
Yes.
Like, who do you feel comfortable about in the bullpen for 2024?
Oh, there's nobody.
Nobody?
Well, not many. So, but the reason
nobody is a little harsh.
The reason I put this out there is, you know, they got $29 million on the books next year. That's it. If they trade Salvador Perez and you eat half of it, it's just $29 million.
So that is one other area where I think you can explore spending a little bit more. If I'm trading Salvador Perez, which I don't think is a guarantee, but I think is a possibility this year.
Oh, yeah, it's a possibility.
If I'm trading Salvador Perez, I would rather not take a flyer on the next Cole Reagans. I'd rather eat more of the contract and get a major league pitcher.
Cool.
Because
that's fine.
I know that you're not saying that's not
that
something
means you
can do.
Guys.
But here's the other thing, though. I think you can use some of your prospects on the verge, guys who have already debuted at the major league level, and try and use them to build trade packages to get a starting pitcher back. Like, what about MJ Melendez for a starting pitcher? If you're not comfortable with his glove in the outfield and he's not going to catch, then he's a DH. But you've already got a bunch of guys with DH at bats. So maybe you trade MJ Melendez for a starting pitcher, and you trade from where you may have an overabundance right now when you include like Nelson Velasquez. You got a bunch of like potential power bats who are going to need to DH because they can't really play the field. So trade from position of strength to address position of weakness. That's a possibility, I think, for the Royals this offseason as well.
Nick Prado or MJ Melendez or
but they
somebody.
Absolutely have to get to a point where, I mean, it just helps you so much to have a rotation where you've got 5 guys who take the ball every 5 days and give you a chance to win. You don't need 5 aces. You just need 5 guys who are reliable, who can give you innings so you don't burn out your bullpen, who can miss some bats. Like, you don't need world beaters, but they just haven't had 5 of those guys at one given time. That's what they need to go into next year. The fewer question marks they have to address, on the pitching staff, the fewer dart throws they're making on that pitching staff, the better. But the fewer dart throws they make, the more they can look at their American League Central brethren and say, why can't we be a lot more competitive in this division? It is the one division in baseball, the only one. If the Royals were in any other division, I'd say, nah, man, you need to really still be thinking the long term here. If you can do a quick turnaround with limited financial resources anywhere, it's the American League Central.
They'd be at $29 million on the books. $29 million.
Well, yeah, the frustrating thing is it doesn't need to be. You're limited already by the small market thing, but you don't need to artificially limit yourself more. Which
and we know that they had $150 million payroll in 16 and 17. That's $130 million that you can go out and spend on players.
I hope that they spend. I don't feel like I can allow myself to feel this is even
I'm saying
a possibility right now.
That is if to who says it, if you want to, not Fred White, if you want to dream a little, like until it happens, people are not going to, but if you want to dream, like this is the scenario and, you got to open up your checkbook, if you want to make a lot of money gambling, guess what? You got to spend money, the odds of you betting $5 every hand, trying to win a couple grand ain't happening. You got to spend money sometimes. So that's what I'm hoping for here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to say every Royals problem would be solved by spending a little bit more, but a lot of them would be. And
a lot of them
I hate to always be so cynical, but like the next major acquisition for John Sherman's ownership will be the first.
For the first, yeah.
And
no argument.
So this final month is crucial and I don't just think for wins and losses, but if these guys who have swung good bats from June through late August now, Massey, Isbell, Melendez coming around, if those guys finish strong, I'm not talking about wins and losses. If those guys finish strong, put together August and September numbers that say, hey, this is an upward trend for a young player that feels sustainable, that feels like something we can bank on for next year, and we can bank on having a lineup that when we get Vinny Pasquantino back is going to be one with some power and some speed, and we can score some runs, then let's invest in some run prevention on the mound and show our fans that we're serious about being something more than a 55-win baseball team.
Coming up, we got What Is Wrong With You? And Tim Fitzgerald joins 580 Sports.
Let's find our winner for What Is Wrong With You today, shall we? Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, and it is time for What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, which you know saves your time, your money, and your material. So never settle when it comes to your metal with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our winner for the week, the PO'd pilot, who was so mad about the arm at the exit to the rental car place, the parking lot at Denver International Airport, and he lost his cool. He was frustrated. He lost his cool. Everybody has been through this at a time or two, often in an airport, where things boil over and you just lose it. This guy happened to have an axe in his car, and he was ready to wield it and do $700 worth of damage to the parking lot arm. And someone tried to wrestle the axe away from him, and then they started brawling, and it was a whole thing. And the video is just tremendous. And the picture is just tremendous because he's wielding an axe.
Just had that thing on him.
Had that hatchet on him.
Went to work on the parking arm. It took him 23 whacks. Again, I am confident I could have gotten that down in less than 23. How many do you think? I don't know how sturdy those parking arms are. Like, I don't think they're made of wood, although they do splinter.
Yeah.
Probably fiberglass.
Yeah, something like that. I would think you could get it done in less than 23.
I think I could get done less than 10.
An axe is a pretty aggressive tool.
Depending on how sharp your axe is, too. Right? Maybe he's got a really dull axe. Maybe that axe has been sitting in the back of his car for 15 years, not getting a lot of use.
That's
who can say?
Funny.
Maybe he was swinging the wrong side. Maybe he was hitting the wrong side of the axe.
Yeah, using the blunt end of it. All right, we've got two news stories today trying to take down our hatchet man. You're up first, Dan.
All right. What do you think a teacher needs for the first day of school? You know, you teacher, you go off for that first day of school. You got your backpack, full of your supplies. You got your binder. You got your pens and your pencils.
Depending on your students, maybe some Tums.
Yes. you got your grading pens, and you've got your laptop, of course, these days.
Oh, if you're a grade school teacher, maybe you got the pen that you can change the colors with.
The clicky pens. Yeah. How about wine? You got something you take to the first day of school? Because this third grade teacher in Oklahoma did. 53-year-old Kimberly Coates was arrested on the first day of elementary school. The first day, after allegedly being drunk while teaching children. She was confronted around 3:20 p.m. on Thursday by School Resource Officer Shane Dean and Perkins Tryon School Superintendent Doug Ogle, said the city of Perkins in a statement. There's body cam footage from the officer from the Perkins Police Department that showed Coates interacting with the superintendent and local law enforcement. Ogle, the superintendent, told Coates that something seemed off and that she didn't, quote, seem like the same person he talked to earlier that morning. Coates began to say she had taken medicine for anxiety the night before, but was unable to name the medication. The third grade teacher then agreed to take a breath test, during which she blew a .24.
Whoa.
That is 3 times the legal limit. That's not just one drink and you're there, Perkins Police Sergeant Spencer Guidon told KWTV. That's several drinks. Coates later said she was drinking late the night before and while on her way to work that morning, according to the body cam video. Upon returning from Coates' classroom with her bag, the footage showed Ogle put down an empty blue plastic cup that apparently smelled of alcohol. No more games, right? Ogle can be heard asking the teacher. What is in that? My juice, Coates replied. Yes, grape juice.
Sure.
Ogle looked to the school resource officer, who then smelled the cup. Want to try again? He asked.
Oh, it's over if you get hit with that one.
That there is wine. Coates, however, stated she had drank out of the cup the day prior. After Coates refused to call someone to pick her up at the school, law enforcement placed her under arrest and escorted her from the building. She's expected to be charged with public intoxication. The district cannot share additional information at this time because it is a personnel issue.
Do you ever have a teacher arrested at a school you went to?
No, never happened.
When my older sister was in grade school, 5th, 6th grade, she had a teacher get arrested. Someone came to the door and said, hey, we need to talk to Mrs. So-and-so outside. They were talking to her outside, and then a few minutes later, a kid at the window says, hey, Mrs. So-and-so is being taken to that police car. And all the kids ran over. They had committed some sort of white-collar crime. Yeah. Yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah, man. Vance in the YouTube comment says she was teaching third graders. I'm surprised it was just wine. Look,
Look, someone was going to say that.
I am married to an elementary school teacher. It is a hard job. It can be a very stressful job. It can be a very taxing job. But you can't do it drunk.
No.
You can't have your special juice to get yourself through, especially if it's day one, man. If you're getting loaded on day one, how are you supposed to make it through an entire year? That's rough.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Well, if she really had been drinking the night before and the morning of, maybe she's got a bit of an issue.
It could be.
Maybe she needs some treatment.
Could be a larger problem than, Timmy and Tommy in third grade.
Yeah. I don't hope that she has an issue with it, but I do hope that it's something other than just I needed alcohol to get through my first day of work.
Right? That would almost be a relief.
My story involves a moron today. We're going to...
Don't most of our stories?
Well, that's definitely true. An American Airlines flight from Miami to New York was forced to make an emergency landing after a passenger gassed the cabin with pepper spray.
Oh, God.
According to one report, the woman claimed she accidentally deployed the noxious chemical after mistaking it for hand sanitizer or lotion.
Oh, no.
What? American Airlines flight AA 1680 diverted to Jacksonville after the incident at about 5 p.m. on Sunday. A Reddit user who reported that their significant other was on board the flight said that passengers near the back of the plane began unexpectedly coughing and complaining that they couldn't see. It was unclear what was causing the disturbance, and a flight attendant called on anyone who knew what was going on to please come forward. A woman eventually admitted to using pepper spray, but said it was only an accident. The plane, a Boeing 737 MAX 8, touched down in Jacksonville, and the woman, along with her partner and teenage son, were reportedly escorted off the aircraft. Other commenters on the original post who claimed they were on board the plane said the pepper spray was no accident and that the family who deployed the spray had been aiming for a different family across the aisle.
What the hell? What?
According to the thread on Reddit, some users said they had no idea why they were suddenly having trouble breathing, and they feared there was a catastrophic malfunction on the plane.
Absolutely. I would be terrified.
Oh, and it's all pressurized. Like, that's not natural air in there. So in Jacksonville, paramedics were on hand to treat those who were affected by the spray. Police, meanwhile, gathered statements from passengers. Passengers were then forced to wait in Jacksonville for 4 hours before finally getting to LaGuardia and landing at 10:30 p.m. TSA forbids pepper spray on flights. It's unclear how the family was able to bring it aboard the plane undetected. I could not roll my eyes harder at that statement. American Airlines was reached out to for a comment and has not yet responded to themessenger.com.
Wow. Oh, I'd be so mad. I'd be so mad.
Can you imagine what must have happened for someone on a plane to try to pepper spray another rider, another passenger? That's insane.
I know. I need to know more.
I know
about that angle of the story. Actually, she deployed that pepper spray.
That guy over there, he took his shoes off and he's eating a tuna fish sandwich. I had to do it.
Yeah, maybe it was justified.
Just unbelievable.
We have a great text from the 785. You asked about teachers being arrested. We got a text from the 785. Had a high school teacher in San Diego arrested during a school day after he was apparently attacked and robbed of over $1,000 in school funds, but found out it was a scheme between he and two other students to make it look like an attack.
Wow. Man, that's California crime right there.
A little light fraud between friends.
That's good. I
wonder,
like that.
I wonder what the student's cut was.
Yeah, what's the percentage there? Oh, man. These are both really good
today.
Today.
Two good ones today. I'm going to go with the pepper spray on the flight, though. You talk about ruining everybody's day.
Everybody's day. Can you imagine if you're supposed to get to New York by like 6:15 and you don't get in until 10:30 and you got to spend all that time in Jacksonville? Jacksonville? Yeah, that's my pick for today.
Yeah.
Does that beat... Wow, a lot of airplane adjacent stories today.
Yes.
Our pilot with the axe.
Nah, I don't think so. I'm still leaning toward the guy who took down the parking arm.
Man, I don't know. They might have been pepper spraying someone else on the airplane.
I know. I wish we knew. If we could confirm that that's what they were doing, I think I might lean toward that story.
Should we go to Fitz for a tiebreaker?
We might have to.
Let's do it. We'll get Tim Fitzgerald on the phone for the Wildcat wrap-up. Again, What is Wrong with You? Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. We'll find our winner when we talk to Fitz next on 580 Sports Talk. It's always a big Kansas State victory when Tim Fitzgerald joins us on 580 Sports Talk. A day later than normal since we didn't have a full show yesterday. You can find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. I'm not calling it X. Elon's not paying me. I'm not calling it X.
I will never call it X.
And you can also, of course, find Fitz's tremendous work along with the rest of his crew over at GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Fitz, would you be willing to help us find a winner for What is Wrong with You today?
Oh, absolutely. I love this.
All right. So we've got two stories that are airline or airplane or pilot adjacent for today. Our reigning winner for the week is a pilot who was in Denver. He was parked in a lot at Denver International Airport.
Rolled up on the parking arm. It wouldn't go up, and he lost his cool, grabbed an axe. God only knows where he got the axe, and took it down with an axe.
Okay. That seems like a rational response.
Yeah, just hacking away at it. Just over and over.
Yeah.
63-year-old man with no criminal history.
Just boiled over for him.
No criminal history, but an axe.
Right.
Yeah, something doesn't line up there. Our other story today, which we just had today, a flight from Miami to New York was diverted to Jacksonville because a woman accidentally, in quotes there, sprayed pepper spray in the cabin, and it caused numerous passengers behind her to lose the ability to see and also caused uncontrollable coughing. She claimed it was an accident. Other passengers on board claimed she was trying to pepper spray another person on the plane, and then they got stuck in Jacksonville for 4 hours because of this woman.
Actually, the first one wins because I admire that guy. That guy's an American hero. Who hasn't been in that situation where like technology doesn't work? That's probably why he had an axe. He knew technology would fail him, and he just wanted to lash out in a lumberjack fashion.
You know, that's fair.
The woman. I just want to know though, the passengers view the inconvenience being the pepper spray or Jacksonville.
That's what I'm saying.
Is Jacksonville like the pepper spray of destinations? I don't know.
Not the city I would want to be stuck in for 4 hours. That's for sure. Well, Fitz, thank you for that. That is our winner for the week then, so far, still, in What Is Wrong With You. Fitz, we've got a lot of football to get to. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but we are 9 days away from kickoff for K-State. They take on SEMO coming up next Saturday. We are so close to the season. So let's be positive here. Let's talk about the things that are exciting about this K-State program, what they're going to do taking the field. And when they do take the field at Bill Snyder Family Stadium next Saturday, the number one thing you are most excited to see about this program is what in week one?
I just want to see this team without Deuce Vaughn and Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Those two guys who were under-recruited, underappreciated dudes have kind of just helped change the entire trajectory of the program. And I feel like it's in a position to carry on. But now I want to see it.
How different do you think the play calling is going to be without Deuce? Because we know there are still some very talented running backs in that backfield, and Ward and Giddens will be one of the best duos in the Big 12 this year. But how different do you think the play calling will be? And I guess it's not just without Deuce Vaughn, but also knowing you've got a quarterback with real NFL potential in Will Howard.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Deuce Vaughn is the equivalent of the Uno reverse card. I mean, you just play him in the middle of the game. Oh, you thought you had him stopped for a loss. It's a touchdown. You know, and that's kind of impact he had. But now I'm sure other playmakers will emerge. Maybe not one as nearly as dynamic as Deuce, but they'll have guys step forward. And I feel good about the running backs. I also feel good about the relationship the quarterback, Will Howard, has with Ben Sinnott, his tight end. And from what we're hearing, he's building a similar relationship with Keegan Johnson, the new receiver from Iowa. So, again, something else I'm interested in seeing. And also, like you said, I'm interested in seeing how Colin Klein puts this all together without a Deuce Vaughn. He's certainly capable of calling plays without him. He's seen that, but I want to see it over the course of the game.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, joining us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. He usually joins us Wednesdays, but we only had 14 minutes of airtime on Wednesday. So he is gracious to join us on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Check out he and the staff's great work at GoPowerCat.com. Flip side of that question, of course, Fitz, is there anything going into this season that maybe you don't think has been addressed or you're hearing might be more of a sticking point for this Kansas State team than previously anticipated, something that is a bit of a concern that might not be alleviated until we see how it looks on the field?
Place kicking. I mean, this team, we saw them change with Will Howard, but simultaneous to that was a change with Ty Zentner. When Ty came on the field as the place kicker on top of everything else he was doing, he was just so consistent with it and so confident about it. There was no doubt when he trotted on the field in Arlington to kick the winning field goal for the Big 12 championship that he was going to do it. He was just going to put it right down the middle of the pipes. And that's exactly what he did. So, I mean, they've got Chris Tennant back, but he got the yips last year. They got some freshmen. I'm curious to see how this works out because you cannot be bad at kicker or punter and be an outstanding team. It's just almost impossible to overcome.
I know we've talked, Fitz, about the secondary, and there's a lot to replace on the back end of the Wildcat defense this year. But there's been some enthusiasm. You can hear it in the way Chris Kleiman talks about it, in the way that Van Malone talks about it. And certainly over the last couple of years, we have seen that that's a position that Kansas State has been able to find players who make impact right away, whether it's transfers from the portal, whether it's JUCO kids or even young players like Jacob Parrish last year. Who are you most excited about in the secondary this year? Aside from Kobe Savage, let's put aside the senior captain. Who are you most excited about seeing take a step forward and maybe be a leader in that unit?
I'm looking forward to see what the JUCO transfer Will Lee looks like. He kind of steps into Julius Prince's role. He's long and lanky and can run, and Van Malone was joking that they can put him anywhere. So I'm kind of excited about that. But again, they do an amazing job of identifying guys, whether it's FCS or JUCO or transfer, that can come in and help K-State right away. They've done it consistently year in, year out. I'm just curious to see if they'll be there, if that's going to pan out the same way. But, simultaneous to doing that, they've also started to build up their depth quite a bit on this roster. So it seems like they're kind of prepared to start building from within at some point. But boy, that transfer portal has really helped K-State, not in an overhaul sense, but just kind of a plug and play sense, just like Bill Snyder used to use junior college.
Offensive line obviously projects to be a major strength of this team. There have been lots of fun stories about the K-State beef, all 5 starters back for this season, but already an injury concern with Christian Duffy, who's been a mainstay on the line the last couple of years. It sounds like he may miss some time. How does the depth developing on that offensive line? Is that a position where, obviously you don't survive like major injury concerns. Nobody does at offensive line, but if there's a nick or two that springs up throughout the season, one already has with Christian Duffy, do you think Kansas State is covered?
I generally do, because of Cooper Beebe. And this is what I mean. They actually returned 6 starters because Taylor Portier comes back. So while they're currently using Trevor Willis out there at right tackle, and he'll start the season there for them, he's not among those 6. And it creates a possibility of, moving either Portier or one of the other linemen into Cooper Beebe's spot and move him out to right tackle, because he's a utility knife. He can do so many things. He can just solve your problems probably across the board, except maybe at center. But I also think he's an NFL center probably when it all shakes out. So, and that's just getting into, their experience, let alone Andrew Leingangs and all the young guys have coming up who are so promising.
We're chatting with Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, the publisher, in fact, of GoPowerCat.com. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up. Make sure you check out GoPowerCat for all of his phenomenal coverage of K-State, and you go check out him on Twitter as well, at Life of Fitz. Fitz, I know you've brought up this name a couple of times with us over the last couple of months, but I know he was the feature or the subject of a daily delivery over at GoPowerCat recently too. Tell us why Uso Seumalo is one of the most important pieces for K-State this year.
Well, you can't be bad at nose tackle in a 3-4 defense, and they haven't been. They've had Eli Huggins and Timmy Horn and other guys that have really helped them there. But they went out and got a player of the transfer portal, but they put it on Uso to become what he could be, because he had such a huge upside, but his problem was something else was huge, which was himself. And he had to get in better shape, but his athleticism is real. When you ask Colin Klein, who stood out of your defense, he just immediately goes, Uso. He's just completely disruptive. So he too is a little banged up now, and we may not see him in the opener, but I think he's going to be an important part of this defense. And guys, if he turns out to be frontline outstanding nose tackle, that could take this defense to a new level, because the shortest point to get to the quarterback is that nose tackle, and if he can do that on a regular basis, K-State's just going to tear up opposing offenses.
Speaking of the opener against Southeast Missouri State, who, by the way, SEMO had a really nice year last year, which makes this a game K-State.
They're good.
Oh, go ahead, Fitz.
They're good. Yeah, they're they're good. This non-conference schedule is pretty entertaining because, I mean, SEMO's good, Troy's outstanding, Missouri's Missouri. They're in the SEC, and might be the weakest team on the non-conference schedule.
You know, I love hearing that. That just really rings, you know, truthfully in my gut. When it comes to the SEMO game, which will be a better test then, since they are coming off a really good year, they return some talent that a lot of teams get with their, you know, their preseason or, you know, week 1 FCS game. Who are some of the players you're hoping to see that may end up being red shirts this year, but could, if the game goes how K-State expects, see plenty of playing time here in the opener, even if we might not see much of them the rest of the way?
Well, I don't even want to get into listing guys, but when they say there's 8 to 10 freshmen on the defensive side, true freshmen who could possibly play this season, I'm intrigued. You know, I want to see who that is. And, you know, what's interesting about this rule is if they're that good, do you really want to use one of those 4 games against SEMO, or do you just go to your walk-ons who paid their dues, maybe use their red shirt in that way? But I think my answer is probably what all K-Staters would say is Avery Johnson. And I feel like if you see Avery in this game at any level, it means they don't care if they redshirt him or not. They'd like to, but maybe they're thinking about him for a bigger role that will supersede, you know, the red shirt and carry through the entire season. And we'll see how that takes place in a game when they decide to put him in, and, you know, if they are trying to hold him back. But I'm hearing great things about the young quarterback out of May.
Is Avery Johnson QB2? Because I believe Chris Kleiman, maybe, I don't know if it was this week, last week when it was, I believe he mentioned at some point, though, during one of his weekly press conferences that Jake Rubley had a good camp as well. Who is winning that backup quarterback battle?
So I think this is exactly like last year, except now the starting quarterback is Will Howard, and QB2 last year was Jake Rubley. He was the one that was going to come in relief. If, you know, Adrian got banged up a little bit, he'd come in. And but if it was a full time, you know, quarterback's going to be out for a number of weeks, maybe the season, it went to Will Howard. And I feel like that's Avery's job this year. Jake Rubley's still the backup, but if it's something serious, they'll turn it over to Avery in a heartbeat, unless, you know, Jake Rubley proves that he can be highly effective. He's had some time to show that, and he just really hasn't. So I will be very interested to see if Will Howard, hopefully he isn't, is injured, and they know immediately it's going to be, you know, not just for this game or maybe even next week, who they put in the field, because I think it'll be Avery.
We are just 9 days away from K-State kickoff. For all the best coverage of K-State football and every other sport, head to GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Make sure you're following Fitz on Twitter as well. His handle is @LifeOfFitz, and he joins us every week for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We appreciate the time as always, Fitz. Thanks for being flexible with us this week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Talk to you later, boys.
That is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. We've got 1 hour left. That includes Mitch Holthus coming up after this on 580 Sports Talk. on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That's Dan Lucero. I shouldn't say welcome back. Y'all have been here the whole time. We've been here the whole time. Really fun day on 580 Sports Talk. If you've missed any of the show up to this point, head to our website, 580wibw.com. Go to the podcasts tab. There'll be a pop-up menu, a drop-down menu, if you will. Click on 580 Sports Talk. Boom, right there. You'll find us hour by hour broken down. You can go check out all of our interviews. Tim Fitzgerald last hour, Rick Peterson from the 3 o'clock hour, Paul Myerberg, incredible stuff as always in the 2 o'clock hour. Or go check it out on YouTube, our YouTube channel called 580 Sports Talk. How simple. It's the name of the show. So go to youtube.com, look up 580 Sports Talk, make sure you're subscribed, and then go check out our streams from every day and today's as well. And you can hop into the live comment section and you can have your thoughts on whatever we're talking about heard on the show today. Coming up here in this final hour of 580 Sports Talk, we've got a bunch of headlines to get to from all over the sports world, including, apparently this is a hot take. I did not realize this. A sad day for college football. I believe college football has lost something today. I'm being tongue-in-cheek, but also like only kind of. So we'll get to that and also some real headlines here in just a few minutes as well. Mitch Holthus is going to join us. A jam-packed training camp report brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union. Since we didn't have one yesterday, we've got 785-272-9429. And again, our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk is the name. Let's get to our headlines today. We've got a bunch to get to from the NFL, but I'm going to start with Major League Baseball today, Dan.
You would talk about real sad news. This is a crushingly sad day of baseball news.
Shohei Ohtani is not going to pitch again this season, and it is unknown what the surgery outlook looks like for him after it was discovered yesterday that Shohei Ohtani has a torn UCL, the ulnar collateral ligament, which, as you know, if you know anything about baseball, often means Tommy John surgery or reconstructive elbow surgery, to be more specific. Ohtani pitched in the first game of a doubleheader yesterday, then batted in the second game, and it was revealed following that by Perry Minahan, the general manager of the, is it Minahan? Is that how you pronounce it? Minasian, excuse me. Okay, I knew that. That's my fault. Perry Minasian of the Los Angeles Angels, that it is a torn UCL for Shohei. He is not going to pitch the rest of the season. Now, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, Ohtani took a day off from the rotation or had to start pushed back because he was feeling arm fatigue. I think he just got skipped in the rotation. He told Phil Nevin, hey, my arm's hurting. I've got fatigue. It's not an injury, but I'm worn out. And it has led to this. And Andy McCullough, who Royals fans, used to cover the team for the Kansas City Star, covered the Royals for the Kansas City Star. This is the tweet he sent out previewing his story that he wrote for The Athletic, his column about this injury for Shohei Ohtani. And I think these two sentences, or I guess three, perfectly sum this up. Could not do it better. Shohei Ohtani reconfigured our understanding of what one person can accomplish on a baseball field, but the limitations of the human body remain undefeated. In this case, everyone loses. We will, in all likelihood, never see this again. Even if we see more two-way players, which, other than Shohei, that really hasn't worked out. There have been a number who have tried or been in the minors and done it, and you get to the majors, you're usually good at one of things.
Teams have given up on it really quick. The Reds were quick to give up on it with Hunter Green. The Cardinals gave up on it almost instantly with Mason Wynn. And if you ask those organizations, they're probably fairly happy with the choices that they've made because they were able to get those players to the major leagues quicker. And Hunter Green has shown promise as a pitcher, and Mason Wynn just got called up by the Cardinals and could be their shortstop of the future. But yes, Major League Baseball teams are not, by and large, eager to develop two-way players. That is not something that they are invested in doing.
It's hard. You've got to spend all the energy and time and resources to be good at one, and then equal amounts to be good at the other. That's not easy to do. And maybe we will. Maybe Shohei Ohtani is going to inspire a generation of kids who play both ways more, which, for what it's worth, at younger levels, I think is a very good thing.
Younger levels, everybody does it. The best athlete on every team is usually the best pitcher and plays center field.
Yeah.
And the best hitter. Like we see that if you're watching the Little League World Series. Like, it's not just, that kid pitches, but he stinks at hitting. Yeah. No, all the good pitchers can rake. Yeah. Like, it's how it is at every level of the sport until you start to specialize a little more Sometimes it happens as early as high school. Sometimes it happens in college. It usually 100%, 99.9% of the time it happens, if it hasn't yet, by the time you get to the minor leagues.
Yes. And one way or the other, we're never going to see this again. The last 3 years for Shohei Ohtani have been truly incomparable. He's the first to ever have a 40-homer, 10-win season. It's stupid. Like, it is truly... People say video game numbers, or it's like a video game, like, all the time, not even really knowing what goes into video games that makes those things happen. Nah, this is like if you really made a video game character and maxed out all of their stats.
From 2021 to now, Shohei Ohtani has made 74 starts on the mound, 34-16 record, 2.84 earned run average, 542 strikeouts in 428 and a third innings. That's 11.4 strikeouts per nine.
Insane.
He has been completely and utterly elite on the mound, while in the same time frame, batting .277 with a .962 on base plus slugging and 124 home runs and 54 stolen bases and 21 triples just on top of that too. So basically, you're talking about somebody who has been one of the 5 best hitters in baseball and one of the 3 or 4 best starting pitchers in baseball over a 3-year span. It's unthinkable. And now we're to the point where this is going to be Shohei's second Tommy John surgery. I don't know if you all remember, but the first time Ohtani needed Tommy John, he was pitching against the Royals. Because I remember watching the game, it was against the Royals, and he was only at like 90, 91 with the fastball. It was obvious something was wrong. And he left that game, and then we didn't see him pitch again until the very end of 2000, or 2020, I should say. And then
the year 2000.
Yeah, the year 2000. And then for the next 3 years, it's been what it's been. This is Tommy John surgery number 2. It is not impossible to consider that Shohei Ohtani can pitch after a second Tommy John surgery. We just talked about Cole Reagan's last hour. He has had Tommy John twice. He has obviously gotten off to a great start in his Royals career. Tyler Chatwood had 2 Tommy John surgeries, put together a decent career.
Tyler Chatwood.
Yeah, I'm just giving you names of guys who've come back. It's not a career death sentence. Drew Rasmussen for the Tampa Bay Rays came back, pitched very well. Now he's going to need it a third time, which we don't have a lot of. Daniel Hudson, relief pitcher, veteran relief pitcher, has been an effective reliever after both of his Tommy John surgeries. It is possible. But Shohei Ohtani also hits free agency this offseason. Some team is going to give him a lot of money and might be more interested in protecting their investment and keeping him off the mound than letting him continue to be what he has been. It is a non-zero chance, certainly, that we have seen the last of what Shohei Ohtani has been over the last 3 years. And that would be tragic for baseball because, again, it's something we've never seen before and are very unlikely to see again.
2 thoughts on that. One, and this is more of a question, maybe if a team isn't willing to use him as a full-time starter, maybe he's a bullpen arm. And I don't know how that would work. I mean, they changed the rules for him once. I'm sure they'll change the rules for him again. He's that good. Maybe he's a closer. And I'm not trying to say that's what he should be. I would love for him to be out there and be an elite starter again. I'm just saying to be able to use all these things that make him such an unbelievable player. Maybe that's how you get him on the mound. I'm just spitballing with that. The other thing, and I don't want to say this is a good thing because nothing about this is good. This entire thing sucks. It is awful for sports, not just baseball. I wonder if because of this, maybe he makes a little less money because there's more questions about the pitching future.
Yeah, a lot of talk about that. Like some people were talking like, oh, he could have a $500 million contract. Well, maybe that's down to $400 million now, which is still more money than any player has signed a major league contract for, but is also different by a whopping $100 million.
Maybe more teams are in the mix. Maybe not many. The Royals are not going to be in the mix, but if you went from like, yeah, it's going to be the Yankees or the Dodgers to, maybe the Mariners will make a run. Maybe the Cubs will be a little bit more in it. And like, I love to joke about that, but it's mostly been a joke. Like, maybe they will be in it. Maybe the Red Sox are going to make a run.
So I guess the question becomes, what is Shohei Ohtani if he's not a pitcher? Like, if the pitching is done, let's confront that possibility. If Shohei Ohtani is just an offensive player, he is still one of the best offensive players in the sport.
He's the best DH in the game.
Is he just a DH? That's the fun question to think about, because he
That's
did
true.
play some outfield when he was in his teens, early 20s in Japan. He would play right field. Obviously, pretty good arm. We know he's a great athlete. Look at his triple numbers. Look at his stolen
He's
base
got
numbers.
speed.
Like Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter, but previously of Baseball Prospectus and Sports Illustrated. He does a daily podcast every day talking about the Immaculate Grid. And because I'm a dork, I listen to it every day. But they were talking about Shohei Ohtani on that podcast today. He says, don't assume that if Shohei Ohtani never pitches again as an offensive player, don't assume he's David Ortiz. Don't assume that he's a DH or a first baseman. What if he's Larry Walker? What if he's a 5-tool right fielder? A guy with a big arm and big power from the left side. Like, what if he's Hall of Famer Larry Walker for the rest of his career? That would still be, I think, a $400 million player. Like, y'all remember Larry Walker? He was awesome. That's still an extremely valuable player. It's just not what we've gotten the last 3 years. It has been a joy. It has been a privilege to live in the age of Shohei Ohtani. And I sure as hell hope it's not over yet. But we have to now, I think, confront the possibility that it might be.
Joaquin Soria, also 2 Tommy Johns.
Hey, there you go.
One other baseball note, sad day for baseball. Steven Strasburg is retiring as well, World Series hero for the Nats, and he will always have that, and they will always have that. He got unbelievable money after that, and deservedly. You're not paying that guy, homegrown superstar pitcher, just helped carry you to your first World Series. Of course you're paying that guy. He's pitched 31 1/3 innings since that World Series.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he had the injury problems beforehand.
Had Tommy John pretty much right out of the gate in late 2010. He had to have Tommy John after his first 12 big league starts, came back at the end of 2011, and then from 2012 to 2019 was one of the best pitchers in baseball, made 3 All-Star games, finished in the top 5 of Cy Young voting twice, won 106 games with a 3.21 ERA, and struck out 10.5 batters per 9. It was a remarkable, I guess you would say that was an 8-year run, 2012 through 2019. And thoracic outlet syndrome is something that has cost pitchers careers. It's a hard thing to come back from. Royals fans may remember Nate Carnes dealt with that. There have been other pitchers who dealt with that, and their careers were just done. Like there was no coming back from it. The nerve damage sustained was too great, and that is the case in when it comes to Steven Strasburg. But you want to talk about a game I will never forget watching? Do you remember his debut against the Pirates?
Yes, because I found out my family's cable had MLB Network because of that game. So I was like, I have to see this. I have to watch this.
I fired up. I was living in Nebraska at the time, and one of my coworkers was a big baseball fan. And I invited him over. I said, you want to come watch this game? Like, I feel like we're going to want to know where we were. And then it surpassed expectations.
He's awesome.
He struck out 14 in 7 innings. He thought he was the future. The number 1 overall pick in 2009. This looked like the guy who was going to break records and just be the future of pitching. And then the elbow went like pretty quickly. And that was a bummer, but then he rebounded from that. And if he was never the best pitcher in baseball for any sustained length of time, he was certainly one of the best for an 8-year stretch. And that's a pretty excellent outcome. It's just sad that it's over. Only 33. I mean, there are a lot of guys. You look at some of his contemporaries, Scherzer, Verlander, Greinke, and guys who pitched well into their mid, even to their late 30s, and now in Verlander and Scherzer's case, into their 40s, still pitching effectively. That the book is closed on Steven Strasburg is also very sad.
Truly an incredible. I know like 3 things about the Washington Nationals stick out in my mind in their entire existence since moving from Montreal. 1, Strasburg's debut. 2, David Bodie hitting a walk-off grand slam against them on Sunday Night Baseball, and then when they won the World Series. Like I have no other memories of anything that's ever happened with the Nationals except those 3 things.
That's fair.
Let's continue on.
Yeah, let's do some NFL notes here on our 580 Sports Talk headlines on 580 Sports Talk.
Tons of them.
Yeah, we got a couple. Just within the last hour, a notable trade that the Arizona Cardinals have pulled off. They've acquired quarterback Josh Dobbs from the Cleveland Browns. This means 2 things. Number 1, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who is an extremely fun player at UCLA, is the backup now to the nasty man in Cleveland. He has won the backup job.
That makes sense. You want someone seasoned, played in the league for 15 years. Oh, I'm sorry. He's a rookie. Yes. He was in college when he was like 29.
But he's fun.
He is. He's very fun. He's a good player.
The other thing it means is that Arizona, who is likely to start this season without the services of Kyler Murray and who is likely to probably start on IR and maybe even start on the PUP list, they might keep him on the PUP list. The Cardinals were clearly not happy with the performance of their quarterbacks. And if you've watched any of the Cardinals in this preseason, brother, you know why. Colt McCoy looks done like dinner. Clayton Tune stinks. They got a bunch of other dudes.
Former KU commit Clayton Tune.
Like Josh Dobbs could start week 1 for the Arizona Cardinals. It would not be surprising.
He started 2 games last season for the Titans.
Yes. When the Titans were making a playoff push and decided we cannot put this in the hands of the guy we just drafted.
So we'll sign him off the street.
So
yeah, that's I mean, you know I love Colt McCoy, but I mean 14 years. By the way, Colt McCoy's been in the NFL for 14 years now. If you want to feel old.
I do.
Thank
you.
But yeah, it's worth it. They're gonna suck anyway. You might as well try.
Yeah.
So I get it. They had to give up a 5th round pick to get him, though.
The big injury news today, it's not good news for the Denver Broncos. Wide receiver Jerry Jeudy carted off at practice today with what has been revealed to be a hamstring injury. He is expected, according to ESPN, to miss at least several weeks. It's so not a season ender, but at least several weeks is not super comforting when you're talking about the number 1 wide receiver. Broncos, of course, already without Tim Patrick, who suffered a season-ending injury in the training camp for the 2nd consecutive year. So at wide receiver, they're down to Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Marquise Goodwin, or am I making that up?
That might be where Goodwin ended up.
It's not a pretty picture. For a team that already, as is well reported, struggled to move the ball. I meant Marquez Callaway is who I was thinking of. Not Marquise Goodwin. Marquez Callaway. They also have the rookie Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma. Kendall Hinton, who will always be famous.
Technically Hall of Famer Kendall Hinton.
Yeah, he's still kicking around. And they got like 8 tight ends who all look like roadies for Nickelback.
No, I mean, I'm seeing Greg Dulcich's picture right now. I get it.
Yeah. So, not great news.
Also, a hammy for a receiver is not good.
No, it's not what you want. A lot of optimism, such as it is, about the Broncos has surrounded the idea, well, that maybe this year they'll be healthy because they've been one of the least healthy teams for the last couple of seasons. That does not look like that's going to be the case. Maybe it's a problem in your physical department. I don't know. Maybe your trainer needs to have a look taken at him if you're not staying healthy.
That's a good point. Also, real quick from the NFL, Corey Davis retired yesterday.
Yeah, that was interesting. Signed a big contract with the Jets 2 years ago from Tennessee. Didn't really produce. And at 28 decided, I don't want to play with this weirdo who's my quarterback now. I'm done.
Yeah, I'd seen some people say online yesterday that he had pretty much every media availability of camp. All he talked about was trying to help young receivers and didn't actually say anything about himself, which kind of gave people the hint maybe he's not really in it anymore. Hey, he made $52 million in 6 years. And he can retire at 28 and hang out with his kids. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. Last thing, by the way, before we get to Mitch Holthus here, coming to Yo City, no longer. Big and Rich, no longer doing the theme song to College Game Day. Was it corny and dumb? Absolutely. But was it also like a thing to hear about putting your zing and your zang or whatever? Yeah, I'm going to miss that.
I hope now we can go back to the original and best College Game Day theme song, Back in the Mud by Bubba Sparks.
Maybe we will. Who knows? That does it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Mitch Holthus is next on 580 Sports Talk. After we didn't have a Chiefs training camp report yesterday because of the Royals game, we are blessed today to have 2 Chiefs training camp reports as we chat with Mitch Holthus, our good friend and the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, who joins us for our camp reports brought to you every day during camp by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Make sure you talk to Haven, Crystal, or Melissa at Azura Credit Union about using the Credit Union Advantage for your home loan. Mitch, we've got a ton of football to get to today, but I wanted to ask you something off the beaten path really quickly, and there is a point to this. When you're at home, who cooks dinner? Is it you or your wife? Who is the main dinner cook in your house?
It depends on the time of year, but I would tell you in the off season, and she's really busy. I'm really proud of her. She works at the Kansas City Metropolitan Crime Commission. They had a Crime Stoppers program and the SAFE endowment, which when there's a fallen first responder, they provide them with endowment funds to the surviving family. So I'm real proud of her and what she's doing, her work. But I'll surprise you because it's probably me. It's 50-50, but summertime, off-season time, and when she's got her kind of real busy time, oh, yeah. It's you, the kids, bringing it. I like to have it ready for her when she walks in. She'll get back sometimes later than I am, walking in the door, and I want to have it ready to go. Little devotion, then we have dinner and let her fly. But yeah, no, I do my share. I'm all good with that. Thank my mom for teaching me how to cook.
Love that. See, I asked because my wife she has got a business dinner tonight, so she's not going to get home till well after I'm home. She's an incredible cook, and I get home usually later than she does since we're on the air till 6. So she's usually our cook. But with her not at home tonight, usually I eat fast food for dinner. I can cook. I'm not much of a cook, though. So I was curious if you were like me and you were kind of I fend for myself by getting fast food, or if you know your way around the kitchen.
No, I mean, I'm not a gourmet chef by any means, but I'll give you a pretty good meal. And I like to keep it, diverse. Like we'll have some fish dishes and pork dishes and beef dishes and chicken dishes, and probably my specialty is a stir fry. I love to make stir fries, and she loves them too, and they're healthy, and so you can do those combo or chicken or whatever. But yeah, there's times when she's walking in the door, I want to have it ready to go for her.
Stir fry. I'm impressed. Mitch, I learned something new about you every single day. Well, thank you. Now I'm going to cook for myself tonight, maybe just out of the inspiration from this. We do have a lot of football to get to, though, as I mentioned. 2 clips to get to.
You can go frozen pizza.
That's true.
Heat the oven, 350. Yeah.
Even I think I can handle that one. I can. Dan can tell you stories from when I first started here. I was
the man had no Tupperware. He was a disaster.
I was total disaster.
As many of us are before we meet our better halves. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't either.
Roman noodles. Yeah, I got you.
Well, let's get to the Chiefs today. The reason we talk about every single day, Mitch. Let's start with the defensive side of the ball and a rookie that I know a lot of people around here are excited for because he's a Kansas City kid. He was the All Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year at K-State, Felix Anudike-Uzomah. And I know we talked a little bit earlier during training camp about how it had been a slow start to camp this year for Felix, but I know long-term there's a lot of potential and a lot of hope behind him.
Yeah, the thesis this week has been what do the Chiefs have to do to try to turn the crank a little bit, try to stay, in that range of 13-4, 14-3, because it'd be really good to win the bye. I mean, this day and age of the NFL, you can do it by winning 3 tough games, but in the AFC, those are going to be 3 really tough games. And the Chiefs getting the bye last year did not have to beat Buffalo and Cincinnati. One of those got eliminated by the other. Not that Jacksonville was good. They're real good, and they're going to be awesome this year. But you catch my drift. It'd be good to get a bye. That being said, one of the ways is just having Felix Anudike-Uzomah do enough. If he could replicate the year that George Karlaftis had, which was the second most pressures by a rookie in the National Football League, only to Aiden Hutchinson, that'd be good. Can you get to 6 sacks? Well, that'd be good. You don't have to get there. But be an effective defender with at times being a dominant defender. Now, Felix, I asked him because, I told you he's been getting after it in camp, and Joe Colin's taking him under his wing. But I asked him about this camp and his reaction to it.
This camp is tough, I'm not going to lie, but honestly, I'm enjoying every single second of it. I'm enjoying learning from the older vets. I'm enjoying learning from the coaches, and I'm just very excited to be here.
interesting to see you work one-on-one. The other guys are off, but they're working on your drops.
Yeah.
What about that? And how much of that did you do at K-State?
I didn't do any at K-State. It's a good learning experience just to work on my drops, just to learn something new, especially coming to the league now. So I learn from Spags, defense and stuff like that, just learning how to do my drops and learning the correct way.
The drops are, and he does this even better than Karlaftis, is he'll line up in a 2-point stance or even 3-point stance and look like he's rushing the passer and then turn his hips and drop into a passing zone. It's a great way to defend short slants, which are hard to defend for defensive backs. And all of a sudden, the quarterback doesn't necessarily see him. He's in the throwing lane and then just pops out of the clouds. And that's what I'm saying, that with his athletic ability, he didn't do it at K-State, but he's shown the propensity that he could do it. So one way the Chiefs could kind of turn the crank a bit is getting a good year. They don't need a great year from Felix, but a good year. I mean, it was awesome. You guys mentioned it, laid it out. He was the first, he's a Lee Summit High kid. He goes to K-State, Defensive Player of the Year, and he's the first pick for the Chiefs on a stage in Kansas City and Union Station with Kansas City's hosting the NFL draft. What a story, right? Sounds like a Hallmark Channel movie or something. Well, that wore off about Tuesday after that first Thursday. And since then it's been, okay, I got to lock in here because there's a lot of pressure on Felix. Again, not to be a 15 sack guy, but to be as effective as Karlaftis was a year ago.
And talking about those drops and the fact that he's got that athletic profile, Mitch, even though it's something new to him, I would imagine that was part of the thing that attracted the Chiefs so much to him going through the draft process, that, hey, even if he hasn't done this before, whether it's dropping back to defend those slants or something else, go wide 9, tighter to the line, whatever, the fact that he is so athletic and his body can still be molded to a degree. I know we've heard that from the coaching staff already. I would imagine that's one of the things that was a major selling point for him.
And he has the ability to move inside, even on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Not that you're going to play him in as an inside tech. K-State did it. I don't have the snaps right in front of me, but I went back and studied how many snaps K-State had him play inside. Plus, the other thing where he was real effective, and K-State did an excellent job with him, was doing twists with him, meaning he lines up outside and comes inside in one of those kind of X, cross twists. And when he did that, he executed it very well. He'll defend the run. He's a very willing run defender. He'll play gap sound and tackle the ball carrier, which is a novel thing. He just has to kind of rev it up, I think, a little bit more. He missed some of this offseason with his being injured the last play of the Sugar Bowl, but he's getting there. But it'd be nice even in this Cleveland game Saturday to get a splash play. I know I mentioned almost every week. He's been close. But if he gets one big play, tip pass, sack, tip pass that leads to an interception, one of his drops and gets a pick himself, that would be something he could really, really, really use going into the regular season.
The other audio, Mitch, we're going to hear today is from your one-on-one with Coach Reed about the wide receiver room. And this has been a topic on our show over the course of the last several weeks. We've talked about it with you a bunch, but there is so much competition in that wide receiver room and a lot of talent, which is great. But when you can only have 53 guys on the roster, you can only have so many at each spot, which I think leads to the wide receiver cutdowns within the next few days being among the most interesting spots on the whole team.
And you could argue the most interesting. Now, let me just kind of set this tone for this. Today was our kickoff luncheon. It's always one of the highlights of the year. 1,200 fans at Lowe's Hotel in downtown Kansas City. It's just this huge pep rally. It's great. But you get a feeling of why this team has won consistently. Coach speaks, Beach speaks. I introduce Chris Jones wasn't there, but I introduced everybody else, like 90 dudes. And it's such a moment for them because they feel they get introduced one at a time and they stand out on a stage and they get all this applause. And you're thinking 38 of these guys are going to be cut by Tuesday. Now, let's be honest, 16 of those will come back. So 22 will go into cyberspace. The 16, most of the 16, because you can get some guys off other teams, will be on the practice squad. All right, here's the wide receiver then. Why did I say all that? Because it puts it in perspective. If you're examining the wide receiver room, there are 13 wide receivers. There are the locks to make this team. Rashee Rice is going to make this team. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to make this team. So is Sky Moore. So there's luck. There's 3. And then there's the next group of guys that will probably make it. Justin Ross will probably make it. Richie James will probably make it. And then you got Justin Watson that'll probably make it. So now I'm at 6, I think. Kadarius Toney's injured. He would make it if he's healthy and ready to go. That's 7. So here the math is adding up real fast. Enter Amir Smith-Marset, who is spectacular against the Arizona Cardinals. And you could see him carving out a place on the team because, 1, he returns kicks and punts, and he can cover kicks and punts. That's 8. Now, that leaves 5 guys that probably aren't going to be near this, but they could make the practice squad. So it begs the question, and I got Coach pulled aside. I got him pulled aside because I wanted to ask him, what has to happen to make this team? Think of all the names that I just mentioned. If you're pulling for a guy or not, think of all those guys and who can check the boxes that Coach lays out that if you're going to make this team, you must do what?
Yeah, everybody thinks that it's speed that is the primary quality. It's quickness, the ability to play in space, being quarterback friendly versus zone and man coverages, knowing how to reduce the top of routes, and all of those little things there, to get yourself open in essence. And then the quarterback, you can tell the guys that the quarterback trusts, and when you watch practice. And so it's that time when the quarterback's got that pressure on that you're available, and he's got to get the ball out quick, and he just knows that you're going to be in that spot. No matter what the coverage is, you're going to be there and be available.
Well, there you have it. And think about, he said a lot there. So you get a play call, you've got the route to run, and is this man or zone? And sometimes you'll see man that turns to zone. Sometimes you'll see zone that turns to man. You'll also see man and zone combos played. It's the National Football League, no longer college football. You have to understand all that, and you better be where you're supposed to be with Patrick Mahomes because he rarely misreads a defense. And then you've got to gain his trust. The second part of this is that you have to play with Patrick Mahomes, and then that's the design play call. What about the play that happens outside of the design? And it's an art form. We see what Mahomes can do when he scrambles, drop arm slots, do all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, it only works if a receiver somehow plays the game with Pat and either mirrors him or finds an open spot, and then you got to be ready like a hitter facing a pitcher that's going to come from all arm slots. There's a lot to check off here, and you must command the offense. Oh, and let's throw this in. If you got 7 wide receivers that are going to make it on this team, and there's some thought that it would be 7, that's a lot, then 4 of those 7 are going to be core special teamers, either returners or coverage or 4 core special teams. And 4 core means punt, punt return, kick, kick return. So check all those boxes and come on in and make the team.
Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here for a training camp report on 580 Sports Talk. They are brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union. You took my question right out of my mouth there, Mitch. Wanted to ask you about the special teams aspect of this. And, in past years, there have been guys who were pretty immediately identifiable as special teams guys. They were Dave Toeb's guys, Marcus Kemp, Reese Fountain, guys like that, who their chances to make the team were based upon the work they could do as core special teamers. You don't have a guy, at least not among the current group that I think most would consider the most likely to make the Chiefs, that has a deep background as a special teams player. So how are some of those young wide receivers being asked to contribute on special teams, and which ones of them maybe have taken to it?
I inferred this after the New Orleans game because I put on Twitter, I might have mentioned this in an earlier report, but I put down the most noteworthy stat nobody's going to notice. And it was Justin Ross, 1 kickoff team tackle. And it was, let's see, who else had that kickoff team tackle? It was Rashee Rice, kickoff team tackle. And that partially answers your question. Now, they aren't considered like the guys you've got, like a Deion Bush at safety. If he makes the team, it's really because of special teams. These wide receivers, there's nobody like that. Like you mentioned, a Darius Fountain type, or a Marcus Kemp who made 3 great blocks on Kadarius Toney's punt return in the Super Bowl. So you're missing that guy, but you've got willing participants who could evolve into that role, and you've got returners here. Richie James, who did punt and kickoff against Arizona, could do that again in this game. I mentioned Smith Marset. Justin Watson's a really good special teams player. We don't think of him necessarily in that way, but he'll cover and make a tackle. But we all want to take Rice or Justin Ross and put him on our fantasy team, or Kadarius Toney. But you got to think the way Coach thinks or Pat thinks, and that's why I played that clip for you, and understand that whoever's going to make this team as a wide receiver, other than Valdez-Scantling, who doesn't play special teams. Sky Moore has, but probably won't, because he's going to be real involved in scrimmage downs. But the rest of them who make this team are going to be probably asked to do it in one way, shape, or form, and you want to be good at it. So going into this game against Cleveland, we'll talk about it on the air, but pay attention to it, because everybody I mentioned is going to get another test here about special teams. And if you completely flub it away, somebody else will just move ahead of you and be as good as you are in scrimmage downs, but become a real asset on special teams.
Just speaking generally regarding special teams, Mitch, how is that unit shaping? And I know it's, multiple units, kick return, punt return. I understand there's multiple facets to it, but just in general, how are the special teams shaping up, and how, excited or concerned is Dave Tobe about this unit this year? Because we know who the specialists are going to be. We know that some combination of these wide receivers will be involved. But overall, what is the outlook for the special teams going into week 1?
The first 2 weeks of these reports, I thought the return game was locked up with Eric Prince at kickoff return and Richie James at punt return. And now I'm not so sure. And I'm not sure what Dave is thinking there, but it's not necessarily Prince's. He's the guy, man. He's the guy. And we'll see what happens on Saturday and what Dave does with that. But it's the rest of the guys. You got 10 guys blocking for him, or you're covering those kicks. And I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing there, because the overall athletic ability of this team, think of the linebackers, how good they are. And Tranquil helps on special teams. Jack Cochran really helps on special teams. So does Leo Chenal. Bolton's not out there, but everybody else is, including Gay Jr. So that's good in that regard, whether you're returning or covering. The tight ends have to help in that role, and the wide receivers have been pretty good. But I'm going to tell you who's the leaders right now of what I'm seeing, and it goes back to our second week of the reports. Who's really good in special teams are those second-year guys that were all the rookies a year ago. I mentioned Cochran already, but Brian Cook is a key piece on special teams. Trent McDuffie can be. Joshua Williams is. Jalen Watson can be. And kind of he is between can be and is. So the second-year guys become many times, or right now, the catalyst for being good on special teams. And that goes back to having young, experienced, athletic talent, and that sometimes translates to good special teams.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us every weekday during camp, save for yesterday, for our Chiefs training camp reports, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, we appreciate the time as always. I assume tomorrow is checklist day for preseason week 3.
Well, and it's our last report, and then we take a week off, and then we'll start Thursday nights with you guys. But the last one, the 20th report, is when I try to put everything in the semester here in the final exam, and that is what do we know now about the 2023 Chiefs, and what don't we know? And then that'll lead us to a checklist for Cleveland. But, I mean, we've got a pretty good idea of where this team is right now, and what does that mean? But we'll dive into that tomorrow night.
Not always the best student, but definitely a good test taker. We're looking forward to it, Mitch. Thanks so much.
You got to go cook supper for your wife.
Yes, I absolutely will. Trust me, she deserves it. That's Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get to a quick break. We'll talk more Chiefs after this here on 580 WIBW. should make it at least reasonably clear. I'm not completely incompetent at cooking. I can cook. Steak. I can cook steak. Fish. I can cook fish. I can do like pasta. If you can't cook pasta, I don't know what to say.
I used to have my share of struggles with cooking pasta. I would just never get it right. I've gotten better at it. I've gotten better at it.
No,
but like initially, I was always frustrated. Like it felt like I would either pull it like a second too early and it would be too chewy, or I'd pull it too late and it would be too mushy. Like I could never strike the right balance, and it shouldn't be that hard. But
well, there's also a big difference in the quality of pasta you get. I learned that in early 2020, when everybody bought non-perishables and toilet paper like we were, well, I'm not going to make a joke. But I went to Dillon's. I was on my way home from the Big 12 tournament when they canceled it, and Bob Bowlesby pretty much was like, I don't know, maybe basketball's over forever. Who's to say? I was like, well, if I wait until after I get home from work today to get toilet paper and food, there will be none.
Not have any, yeah.
So I went and I bought toilet paper, and they were doing 10 for 10 boxes of store brand pasta. So I bought them. And let me tell you, that pasta was not good. There is a difference between good pasta and bad pasta. And I had to eat it for months because I had so much of it.
I'll tell you though, pasta leftovers, I actually think pasta, like among like foods that you can eat as leftovers, pasta very high on my list.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like you've got like pasta, and then you got like a good sauce over it. Like my wife and I did that this week. My wife made real simple, like meat sauce, and like I had penne, she had spaghetti.
Sure.
I like penne noodles better than I like angel hair or spaghetti noodles.
Fair enough.
So they had penne for like 3 days. It was great.
Yeah.
I had some today for lunch. It ruled. It was excellent. It was simple. It was fast. It was tasty.
Yeah.
It was healthy. It was good. So shout out to pasta. I am better at cooking at it than I used to be.
Chris Jones, he is not with the Chiefs right now. Literally, he is part of the Chiefs, but presently he is not a part of the Kansas City Chiefs. At this point, because we've done the confidence level, the percentages that he gets an extension done, that has obviously changed over time. Where are you on the scale right now in terms of he's actually going, not even that he's going to play week 1, but that he's actually going to report to the team by week 1?
Do I think percent chance he reports before week 1?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still at like 50-50 here. Like
yeah.
I do like the Rams got it done with Aaron Donald. And I think Donald was even more dug in and even harder because he was going to set the market.
Yeah.
And that was an even harder thing to get done. And the Rams got it done. It took all of preseason, but they got it done. And I think that I think we could be headed for a similar outcome here. I just don't want to be caught flat-footed because I don't think Chris Jones wants to sit. He talked big talk about wanting to win Defensive Player of the Year. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to win Defensive Player of the Year, or do you want to hold out on principle? Like, what's more important to Chris Jones? I think playing is more important to Chris Jones. I think he wants to be out there. I think he wants to be out there with his guys. He knows he's in a rare spot in the prime of his career on a Super Bowl championship team to leave a Hall of Fame legacy. I don't think he's just going to wave that away unless the Chiefs offer is like insultingly low, and I have no reason to believe it would be.
I think more fans are not turning on Chris Jones, but are getting to the, okay, man, like,
dude, just show up.
Get over yourself kind of mode. You know, a great way to get public support back on your side, though, to be there and kick ass.
Yeah.
To be there week 1 and to shove Jared Goff's face in the turf 3 times. Like, that is a great way to get people to say, no, pay this guy. But I don't care what it costs. I don't care what the cap looks like. Pay this dude. I think that probably sways things because whether players want to admit it or not, I think a lot of athletes do indeed care about that kind of thing. So I want to see him out there. I'm fascinated by what it would look like without him out there, but I'm the same way. I'm about 50-50. I think there's a lot of reasons why he should, but I can also understand that he's dug in and, you know, pride and stubbornness. As someone who is extremely stubborn, I get it. I get that it is a strong factor in a lot of things. Hopefully, we'll have some resolution tomorrow. We'll talk to Mitch Holthus tomorrow. Matt Derrick is going to join us on the show tomorrow as well from 2 until 6. But before we get to tomorrow's show, let's take one final time out. We'll wrap up this show with the final word coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Well, it feels like a good time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk right before we get to Dave Ramsey here at the top of the hour. Dan, what's your final word?
Final word for me today, I'm doubling back to the Shohei Ohtani news. It sounds like he's going to continue to bat for the Angels while he figures out if he can rehab his torn UCL or if he's going to need Tommy John surgery for a second time. I just really hope we're not talking about his pitching career in the past tense. I hope we get to see him back on the mound again. I hope we get to see him do the things that have made him the most singular baseball talent that any of us who is listening to this or saying this has ever seen in our lives. I hope we get to see it again. I don't know what uniform it's going to be in. I don't know when he's going to be back on the mound again. I just hope that he is back on the mound again because it's one of the most special things about the sport I love the most, and I hope it's not over.
Final word for me today on a lighter note. If you or anyone you know was on American Airlines Flight 1680 from Miami, diverted to Jacksonville and onto LaGuardia in New York, please let me know why that woman was trying to pepper spray someone on the plane. I have to know. Why would you go to that extreme length for a flight that can't be more than like 2.5 hours? I have to know the answer to that. We will have our weekly championship for What Is Wrong With You, our final training camp report with Mitch Holthus, our weekly chat with Matt Derrick, all coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk from 2 until 6. Don't forget to go check out the website where you can find the podcast. That's 580wibw.com. And go subscribe to us on YouTube, where our channel is called, simply enough, 580 Sports Talk. We will join you coming up tomorrow to wrap up the week from 2 until 6. But until then, for Jake Laban and for Dan Lucero, I am Brendan Dworzinski. We'll talk to you guys then right here on 580 Sports.